Okay. And then, hello, everyone out there. I am Dani Henderson. We are just about to bring on Trevor Grassi. He was here a little while ago, and he did a beautiful 2-hour presentation on the opening of the Hall of Records. Now you are host, sir. Now you are the host. And this week, you guys have loved him so much and his brilliant information. It's his research, his archaeological research over a long, long, long period of time, and the research of others that you always give credit to, Trevor, which is such a lesson in humility and humanity, to always quote the person's work that you are drawing from and potentially continuing on. But it's very important in these times to not be their plagiarizer, and build your bridge on yourself and other people's work. And so you are now the host. Please introduce the subject matter today, which is the secret history of the third eye.
Yeah. So coming into this is a slightly different subject from last time, but I'm definitely going to try and make this intro quick so we can get into it, because there is a lot to get to today again. Yeah, I do have to say thank you so much to everyone who showed up at that last interview. It was really quite incredible to see that many people in the chat with great comments and great questions, and it was really overwhelming to see how fast it was going. I didn't expect to not be able to keep up and answer all the questions, but it was really inspiring to see how many people were really into it and got a lot out of it. So got another heavy duty info drop here. And it's about also some of my favorite information to get into. The Hall of Records and the Sphinx, that's a lot of the first stuff I started researching. And the third eye kind of cuts straight to the end of it, to what I consider to be some of the most important information on the planet at this point. And yeah, I actually caught your 2 interviews over the last couple of days with the whole crew, with Elena and Chris that first night, and they said some stuff about it, which was great. And then you brought on David and John Charles also the next night. I saw that one last night. And all this, yeah, it was great getting these opinions from, people who do have their third eye turned on. So it's kind of
yeah, they do. That not only do they have their opinions, they have their real life experience. This is on and off planet, and what we're trying to do, well, what we're absolutely doing, I on purpose on my beautiful channel, is I'm bringing everything in together. I'm dovetailing every system, every imagined, every subject, everything that we've ever known as children, babies to children to adults. I'm deliberately bringing the people I consider to hold the greatest, most honest, most pure knowledge all together for all of us to go to one place, drop off and pick up what we need right now.
Yeah, I really love that. I really love that, because we're getting to hear from them. They have experience in remote view, astral projection, and using the third eye, and really having a firsthand experience with it. I'm not quite there myself. I can't read the Akashic records or anything, all these things we'll get into here, but I do have a lot of this background and research and into the science and the process of it, into the actual anatomy behind it, and a lot of the things that, I'm going to get into some of that, the practical stuff and how to use it. And then I'm going to go deep into the historical encryptions of it and how important it is. And I got some really fun stuff for the end too, some exciting stuff to get to. So
beautiful.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks for having me back, and thanks everyone who showed up and was a part of this. And I think we can jump into it if you're ready.
Absolutely.
Okay, so
share screen.
Here we go with the screen share. Okay. All right, starting with Nikola Tesla. The day science begins to study non-physical phenomena, it will make more progress than it made in all the previous centuries of existence. So that's what we're here to do today, is study non-physical phenomena. This is a book by Manly Hall, and he's going to come up a couple times tonight, because this is one of the first books where we really get a very detailed description of the pineal gland and the third eye, all these parts of what he calls occult anatomy, or hidden subtle anatomy, some of these higher fields of the body that we end up building and growing and feeding and generating as we develop the third eye. So this is just a quick shot to show that this was one of the first books that really got deep into it, because he was studying all this earlier history of people looking at this. But this was one of the first books I ever got by Manly Hall too. And I know you have a story about him, you said also.
Yeah, I've studied Manly P. Hall, he often goes by, and just actually, because he, whatever people say about him, the man brought us so much work, and this is one of the greatest books I've ever read. It's The Secret Teachings of All Ages, and
Yeah.
he was 26 when he put this together, and he got a lot of information from the New York Library. And every symbol, every icon, every drawing, every symbology of anything used in the modern day and not, is pretty much in here with and you have to dip it. I mean, look at the, Perselius is in here. I mean, there's just so much information. And what happened with Manly P. Hall was he, at the end of writing this tome of work, he was gifted a 33rd degree. So he became a Freemason, a Masonic. The Illuminati was so amazed by him and his depth of knowledge and what he did. He was gifted a 33rd degree. A lot of people think the Masons, you only go up to 3 degrees. We don't, that they go up to at least 100, but that's not for right now. But yes, again, to just to qualify, clarify, scholar that you are sharing.
That's more what we're going to get into in an hour or so. But yes, exactly. I think he has to be mentioned here, and he is got a lot of this part of his later story is very interesting. But it's interesting that a lot of this stuff he published about the third eye actually came before he had any affiliations with Masons, honorary or not.
Yeah, they don't own the world. They never did.
Yeah. So let's go in here. This is about a lot more than the pineal gland. You see the pineal glands right here. You got the pituitary, thalamus, the pons, medulla oblongata, and all of this whole kind of body at the top of the spine is what we're going to be looking at, this shape and how it relates to the spine itself. So these are some of the main parts of it we want to look at. Cerebellum, not so much, but all these. I want to give a kind of view of what this top of the brain stem looks like here, just to get an idea. And steganography is what we're looking for, which is the process of or practice of concealing messages or information within non-secret text or data. So this means hiding secret texts within texts that are out for everyone to see, or pictures within pictures. And that's what we're going to see a lot with the pineal gland and the neural anatomy being encoded into art and in words as well, like the temple of our head is this place to worship God, or temple with the throne of God. And some of this ancient symbolism shows, again, a lot of this perfect balance between a lot of things that look like the hemispheres of the brain, and the tree of life representing the spine with the Kundalini energy rising up it as the snake. And there's a lot of associations with Christ and the crucifixion, which I'll get into a little bit later. But that being the 33rd year of Christ's life when he's crucified is another allegory for the 33 vertebrae in the spine.
Can I interject here? I know that you are going to whip through these slides. And what I want to say to the audience, please take your time. Look at a slide like this and maybe take a photograph and then go look up the images that Trevor has put together for you here, so that you yourself can dive into your own deeper understanding. Otherwise, I think it's not fair for Trevor, who's put so much work into this, to have to rush through.
That's a really good point I wanted to make before. I made a whole nother gallery and a whole nother page on my website. So I'm going to blow through some things. There's going to be memes that have quotes and stuff that you're not going to have time to read. I'm sorry, especially if you're in the live show. But this is meant to be paused later. It's meant to be taking your time with, because I will have to blow through some of these, but you can look back at all of it. And I have a whole bonus gallery as well that I'm not even going to get into on the interview, but you can look at also. So I got tons of articles. So great point. Thanks for saying that. Of course, the caduceus is representing the chakras in the spine as well, with the two serpents going up. The two hemispheres of the brain often are represented by wings with the third eye in the middle. So the caduceus is pretty old. This is an old one from Egypt, and it's called the rod of Asclepius with one snake and staff of Hermes with the other. which as we know is Hermes' Thoth is Jehuti. And yeah, this is representing these two kind of double helix channel going up in your down your spine.
Trevor,
And
let me jump in there. As you mentioned, the caduceus, the two serpents going up, their sword, look at the sword image and the wings. If we look at where you took that information from ancient Egypt, and we look at right now, October 2022, when we hear about Jehuti or Thoth, Bingij Nizar, there's other names for this awakening giant under Florida. And we go all the way back to Egyptian mythology, and Thoth, Thoth, so many other ways to say his name, was an ancient scribe. He was an ancient god, apparently. There's many stories about him. But this image, guys, those of you that may think, I kind of recognize that, it is the medical symbol around the world. It's called the caduceus. It is on medical hospitals, symbology. It goes, but before the time of, the Latin language, you will see this image of the double-headed serpent. Thanks for letting me jump in there, darling.
Yeah, definitely. It'll kind of keep coming up, but starting from its roots, you can see it in the Sumerian, very old. And this is basically showing that Ida and Pingala are these two kind of channels that come up and down. And some people, have said they're both spiraling up, but really I think what's going on is you have this secretion coming out of your brain, and it's cerebral spinal fluid. It ends up coming down all the way to the sacrum into your base chakras. And then here it's actually held and purified and distilled into this other substance, which ends up going back up the spine and feeding this sweet DMT nectar to the pineal gland, essentially.
That's
when
beautiful.
It's all flowing properly. And so the chakras, the word chakra means wheel, and they end up kind of spinning as you get this flow going of the cerebral spinal fluid going up and down. So this is at the core of what the real process is. You want to be able to get that fluid flowing, and then the energy is flowing as well with it. And there's a few pictures of this you can look at later. And this is the metaphor of Santa Claus going up and down the chimney, is this Kundalini fire of the rising and falling cerebral spinal fluid. And the red and white that Santa uses is also the two versions of this substance, which is what Jesus called milk and honey, where the honey was this purified substance that actually had the DMT in it. And of course, the red and white is also the Amanita muscaria mushroom. It's tied to a lot of this early folklore that's connected to Christmas. This guy's got quite a haul. And Santa Claus comes from the word claustrum, which is actually the top of this whole body of organs, of glands. So I think the claustrum is the gland which the secretion originally comes from, and then goes down the spine and comes back up.
Okay, just pause there. Excuse me, pause there for a second. And listen, we're going to take as long as we need to take, all right? Just so you know, now that I've got you. Just, we're just going to relax. Because you're bringing up things here again. We need to let the audience that see this pause and have a think. Because again, people today, their need for instant gratification, when I have somebody like you on, as brilliant as you, as quick as you, it forces people to almost stop themselves, because they are so instant gratification, watching all the YouTube channels, and they move, oh, who's talking over here and who's talking over there? And I keep saying this, and I will keep saying this, guys, slow down. Don't jump to the next broadcast. Take it in. Go back to old broadcasts on people's channels. They're not old. It's information that we need right now. The claustrum, Klaus, we need to eliminate that ridiculous Santa, because it's an inversion word for Satan. It's Father Christmas. It's Father bloody Christmas, the big fat man in the red suit. Right? Ancient legend. It's Father Christmas. It's not Santa. And Klaus, when a mother gives birth, the first milk that feeds the baby, ideally, that if she can give for the first 3 days, is called colostrum. It's just so many similar sounding, root words, phonetically sounding words. And I just wanted to raise those those 2 points there too, my love. Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. That was something else I was just going to say too, is the colostrum is this chemical in the breast milk. And if your kid is drinking, you know, formula or something that doesn't have that, they're going to not have their pineal glands develop properly. They need colostrum, which is spelled Colostrum, but it sounds exactly like the part of the brain that is also related to class. And
It
it's just
does.
one of many metaphors that are describing this. But yeah, I
Right.
was going to mention that the breast milk, especially.
Brilliant. And you know what else? You know, when you showed the images of the chakras, the magnetism of the chakras and the loop of the fluid going round and round, it is so similar to Chris O'Connor's Deems device, which is, it looks like an ancient
Yeah.
Egyptian ankh. It is a healing
Uh-huh.
device, and it has the 13 magnets that go around on the inside and the
Right.
number
Well,
14 on the top. And the fluid that he puts in that is honey.
well, this is a couple good points right here, because I actually put a slide in for the Deems device towards the end,
Of
because
course
I
you
do
did.
talk a little about vibrational healing and how that helps to get all these currents running, just like acupuncture or shiatsu or Tai Chi. It's all about getting this chi flowing through your whole body, or prana, or life force. So exactly, I was going to mention Chris too, because what he said the other night was, he's great. You know, he's just great. And he said that when his crown chakra opened, he felt like it was like honey coming out, and that's the word he used. And that's the word Jesus used, milk and honey. The honey is the purified, after the whole alchemical process has happened within your body. That's the distilled elixir of life that feeds the philosopher's stone in alchemy. So yeah, we're getting to all that. But it's the DMT in there. And Rick Strassman is one of the first people to do a real serious study on this stuff. And this book's incredible for if you want to get into DMT and what it is. But we're going to come back around to a few of these things too. This is a very practical image that gives you a very clear sense of how you need to do it. And again, Chris made a great point of saying you have to work up from the bottom, where it says 1, 2, 3. You have to start by getting your out of survival mode and out of fear mode, and you need to start building some confidence from the bottom before you can get up to this stuff. So great
And
meme. I don't know who made that, but
can we say for one moment about Chris O'Connor, as we've mentioned him, that Chris O'Connor is a beautiful man being, and he is responsible for bringing us one of the first on market free energy tools. It's called the Deems, Deems, guys. So if you look up Chris O'Connor, Deems Company, you will see the device that we're talking about. And also, when it comes to the chakras, even those who are just waking up to the possibility there might be these electromagnetic wheels inside of us. For me, they anchor in the soul. But we're told, oh, there's 7. No, there isn't. There's way more than 7, guys. Way more than 7. Okay, sorry,
yeah.
continue.
Oh yeah, for sure. And when you get into the acupuncture charts, you can see there's nodes all along all of these meridians, and these are all lesser and lesser parts. Which I got a couple pictures in a second. I can point that out better, but yeah, that's a great point. I forgot whatever you just said as well. There's another great point there. Another thing I was going to say. So great. But this is the rainbow body as it's portrayed in Buddhism, which is the light body that you're developing. And building up within yourself as you get these currents flowing and this energy flowing out through all your body in the correct way, you get this body developed. And this is the 16th Karmapa, who was photographed during a ceremony, and nobody saw him disappear or anything, but this photograph came out. You could see the chair right through him, so it's often taken as a photo of the light body. And then you had Semyon Kurlian, who developed Kurlian photography and helped us to start see these auras from the human body and from other organic materials like foods, sprouts, mushrooms. You can see this corona of energy literally coming off of them. And even this Tesla coil within, this is a time exposure showing that there's this helix of energy coming out of this pyramid. I just found this the other day, and that's where it's from, I guess. But it's kind of interesting, related. Drunvalo Melchizedek, I don't know if you know of him, or these books kind of get into the Merkaba, the flower of life, this energy field that you can generate with your own heart if you're using it properly. Some of these books are pretty interesting. Serpent of Light was very interesting to me. He's talking about how the Mayan pyramids in the Yucatan, there are 7 of them that make a spiral, and each one corresponds to each of the 7 chakras. So I ended up going to all those too, actually, while I was in Mexico. And this wasn't my picture, but this was from Kohunlich, which is the third eye temple. So you see it accented. And this one was very difficult to get to. It was way, way out there in the jungle. But very cool temple that is being restored right now. And then we have this idea that the earth has its own chakras, where Mount Shasta would be the root chakra, and then Mount Kailash in Tibet would be the crown chakra. And this image I've seen a lot. I've never really been able to track exactly where it came from. I think Alice Bailey had something to do with this. I'm not completely a fan of hers, but she said some interesting things. But this is kind of a lot of people have seemed to agree with this general scheme for where these energy centers relate to the planet itself. Anyway, that's Mount Kailash, which would be the crown chakra. And this is something Drunvalo Melchizedek claims was old Mayan practice to help. Basically, that your pineal gland has this fuzzy ball of kind of snowy light coming off of it, and you want to hone them into these bars and beams that come directly out, even using your hands to kind of form them into these poles of light or energy that emit from it in this more organized way. So this tells you to kind of use your hands to form this energy into what it's supposed to look like, according to Drunvalo, according to this Mayan ceremony. So it says do it in order. So you do this diagonal one, like a unicorn coming out, and then 2, so the second one comes straight out from the sides. 3 is forward and back, and then up and down into your throat. So that's one thing. And he also talked about the Merkaba a lot, which is this Atlantean kind of shape that was very sacred, and it's a kind of vehicle for consciousness in a sense, or the shape of this energy field that you generate with your heart when you're doing it right. This is an ancient Egyptian trick to stimulate the pineal and pituitaries when you crunch your toes forward and kneel like this. Another little trick. This is a piece of art I did about the chakras, and this is to say that I actually released 2 articles here that you can look up, so I don't have to explain it as much, which is good. But one of them is called Secrets of Meditation, and I get into 2 very special tricks you can use here. There's a link to a sidereal clock, and basically it was discovered, I don't have the guy's name at the moment, but it's in the article. So this is all linked from my page. Basically, there's one point every day when the galactic center is directly above you. And depending on your longitude, if you put your longitude in here, basically when the local date and sidereal time is 1330, that means the galaxy is directly overhead, and you actually get this 300 to 400% boost in psychic ability at this one specific time each day. But because it's sidereal, it means because the Earth is moving slowly around the sun, it changes by 4 minutes about every day. So you need this clock to calculate when this happens. But essentially every day there's an hour where you get this super galactic blast of psychic power. So it's a good time of day to meditate if you're aware of when the galaxy is directly overhead. And then this is another resource, which is a lunar calendar. And so apparently when you, this information came from John St. Julian, someone I'm going to mention later. But essentially, whatever your sun sign is, whatever sign you were born in, when the moon is in that sign, the moon is actually pulling up on your fluid in your spine. And so you're getting a lift to it. And so whenever the moon is in your sign, say if you're a Capricorn, it's actually going in at 11:11 next month in the morning. But say you're a Capricorn, you would want to use these couple of days each month to get into a deeper meditation, possibly fast or eat light, or do some whatever you want to do, but utilize these 2 or 3 days each month when the moon is in your sign. Male or female, you've got a monthly cycle with the moon, and it does tug up on this nectar that wants to rise up the spine at that point. So you get a boost with the moon's help if you use these few days a month. So I have a link to this lunar calendar, which is another helpful tool. Little secrets here. But essentially, it's about the emotional state, and you have to, you really have to do work up from wherever you're at. And you have to recognize that the more you build up negative or positive things within those bodies, within your multiple bodies, are above your physical one, the mental body, emotional. You have thin coronas and giant fields that go 50 feet out from your body, all different kinds from what I've learned. And all of it really has to do with getting out of this fear, guilt, doubt, shame zone, where depression will grow into a greater depression, or it will grow into sickness or accidents or things going wrong for you. But when you start making the direction and the progress in the right direction, you get up to this higher zone. So a couple memes like this just to show that how you center yourself. This is the Japanese ikigai, between what you love, what the world needs, what you can be paid for, or what you're good at. So this concept kind of tries to help express how you reach a place of fulfillment or a place of feeling good about who you are. And that's the base level. You're not going to get the chakras turned on until you can have some faith in yourself. And this is the third really great one, but I've got a whole gallery of this stuff that's good to just kind of understand these base needs, safety and security needs, and then community and a sense of belonging. And only then will you get to self-esteem and to self-knowledge and self-actualization or self-realization. So yeah, like Chris said, you got to work up from the bottom here. But we'll keep moving. If you get to the top,
Edgar Cayce.
You get to be like Edgar Cayce. And yeah, he really showed us how to read the Akashic records, which is essentially the ether, or this fluid substance that all events are kind of leave an impression upon in some sense. So he's able to go back to Atlantis and Egypt and describe things like he's there seeing it at a different time. Well, I believe most everything he said, because for one thing, he had over 14,000 psychic readings in his life. He was almost never wrong. If people listened to him, their body would heal. He'd tell them what's wrong with them. And he's one of my favorites because he really tells us so much about Atlantis, for one thing, but also about this secret of the human body. So definitely have to mention him here.
Definitely. Can I say a couple of things about Edgar Cayce just to back
Yes.
up your intel? So Edgar Cayce, this beautiful man, guys, if you want to look him up, that you've never heard of him, he was also known as the Sleeping Prophet. His last name, Cayce, is spelled with a C, C-A-Y-C-E. He was known as the Sleeping Prophet because he had an ability to go into a trance in himself with a patient lying on a bed beside him, and he had a secretary. And he would go into trance, and he would go into the field of the person who was sick, and he would feel into and see clairvoyantly what was and clairsentiently what was wrong with them, come out of trance, and then he would have given a prescription that the secretary would write. And this went on for years and years and years. He did a lot of recognition of the gut, the bowel, and a lot of treatments would be working with castor oil, heavy warm heat packs on the bowel to move the sludge out of us, because our body's been becoming toxic for a long time. I mean, he was around in the 30s and 40s, I believe. I could have the date wrong. When was he alive?
Yeah, he was around that time.
Right.
Yeah, I have a book about health he wrote. He, I think, knew the human body better than anyone else possibly
Right.
ever.
And he has
went inside of it.
Right. And he has, guys, he's established in Virginia Beach in America, and there is a center, a research center on Edgar Cayce that you can go visit, you can look online, because he's a really special, I think, like you. I'm glad you included him, because I think Edgar Cayce is a very special individual. I really do.
Yeah.
Thank you, Trevor.
Yeah, the ARE, the Association for Research and Enlightenment. I've been there. It's very cool. His library is amazing. You can stand in a room where 3 of the walls are his psychic readings. You're actually standing inside these hard copies of. It's amazing. There's like a meditation garden and stuff. Very cool. So yeah, he's one of my heroes. But moving along, I'm going to get into the silver cord here, which is known as this kind of almost like an umbilical cord that tethers the physical body to the astral body in the process of astral projection, which, yeah, you can go back in time, you can go anywhere in space, you can see anything, and it's not to be taken lightly. You need to, take it very seriously as a thing. Your body's left vulnerable. It's not something for anyone to just jump into, but it's also not that hard if you do try. And I just wanted to mention the science behind how this silver cord actually kind of acts like a fiber optic cable almost. And images seen by your astral body can literally travel through it and get wired straight into the physical body, either at the umbilical or at the third eye. And these images, so this is what's crazy is you have the calcite crystals in your third eye and you have the DMT as well. Both of those are piezoelectric qualities, which means they can produce light. So even inside the dark center of your whole skull, these chemicals can literally produce light inside there. And it's almost like you have a tiny movie theater inside your brain where they can actually project images with light through cones and receptors of the eye wired into the visual cortex. So you're actually seeing an image that's coming from your astral body, astral form, wherever it is. And it just zooms back through this silver cord. So that's pretty interesting, but let's keep moving. Here is a, this is Cleve Baxter. He's one of my favorites too. So he was one of the inventors or one of the experts on the polygraph machine, which is a lie detector where you use to anode and cathode to measure the impulse of a human body. And after a long night, one night he decided early in the morning after working in a lab, he hooked it up to a plant in his lobby. And then he decided to see if he could try and get a reaction, a nervous system reaction or emotional reaction out of this plant. He thought about how to do that. And after a minute, he thought, what if I held a match under this plant's leaf? And at the moment he thought that, the plant freaked out. Not did it. The moment he thought about holding a match under the leaf, the plant freaked out. And then he left the room to go get a match and it calmed down a little and he came back with the match. It freaked out again. And he lit the match and it freaked out a little more, but then it calmed down because by this point in time, he'd already realized he'd seen something unbelievable and he didn't want to hurt the plant. And he recognized that the plant just read his mind. So he calls it biocommunication. In this book, Primary Perception. There's no other book like it. I mean, he discovered that there is an invisible conversation going on constantly between your own vibration and the universe, the ether. And this conversation is what's sustaining all existence and matter when we're not, specifically manifesting a certain thing. This is the conversation that's always going on, whether we know it or not. He discovered some incredible things, like about what can be stored in the human body too. But I think we should keep moving on a little bit, but maybe we can talk about him another time too. Dr. Emoto, he showed that when we speak to water or snowflakes, they end up taking on the quality of whatever we say to them. All this stuff is related, but again, these are just keywords you can look into yourself. But imagine what you can communicate to animals if plants can read your mind or your intentions. And
Trevor, as you praise the work of Dr. Emoto, if we could go back to that slide, just so we can help people who are going through their own healing right now. And I know a lot of people that watch your presentation, they will know who he is. But for those that don't, Dr. Emoto figured out that when we take, say, a bottle of water, and we can put a label on it and we can write love on that label, and we can take another bottle of water and we can write the word hate. Well, in the morning, when they had gone to test the water under a microscope, the cellular structure in the water had changed so dramatically, violently, so that if you look down in the lower left corner where you've got "You Make Me Sick," you would look at really devolved cells, cellular structure from the water's beautiful general moleculi. And then the one that said "love" was just abundant and high vibratory, and it made some kind of symmetrical sense. So if we take that thought, and you look at how you guys talk to yourselves, you put yourselves down, you're really cruel to yourselves, you're unkind to yourselves. Your body is more than 70% water. And so are your children's, and so are your kids, your partners, your lovers. You know, the awareness that you're bringing right here, right now is brilliant. Trevor, I'm so grateful to you. There are so many people watching this channel to gain and glean self-help too, self-love. And this is a beautiful way to remind us. When you talk shit to yourself, ladies and jelly beans, look at the lower level. You look at the higher level, be kind, be loving. This is what you transform your own cells into being. Thanks, Trevor.
Right. It's much like quartz crystals. Water holds on to energy that's put into it, or information. So yeah. Anyway, I love this lady, Anna Breitenbach, and there's a whole documentary about her work, but she can teach you how to speak to animals. Watch one of these videos I share on my page or subscribe to her. Really amazing stuff. And of course, Khalil Gibran, another great master, told us to trust in dreams, for in them is hidden the gate to eternity. So yes, dreams are the only other time besides birth and death where you naturally excrete this DMT into your third eye, and you can access this lucid consciousness. So you can practice for the afterlife through dreaming. You can understand messages from the universe in your dreams if you take them seriously. And in life in general, you have two kinds of intelligence, one in the brain and one in the heart. And essentially, the heart's intelligence is superior to the brain's. And if you want to live in the moment and be present and aware, you want to be living from the heart. And you know, a lot of people describe what that means, but you get it. You know, think with your heart. That's it. So I've also got a lot of these detox memes, tons of them for you to check out later if you want to come back to this. Apple cider.
Yeah, guys, you got to slow this down at this bit, because that other one you just skipped over there. Some of those nutrients are so needed right now. The pure essences, not the interfered, not your cheap high street brand, but the purer essences, because yeah, it's so time. Yeah.
I'm going to come back to this a little bit more, but there's tons of this stuff. And what Elena said the other night as well, zeolite is a crystal that helps purify. That was a good one I'll mention. And ground yourself into the earth, you know, go out by the trees, take off the rubber-soled shoes, get in the creeks and the water. And the earth is a battery that charges your battery. So you have to do that if you really want to get charged up.
Yeah, all the natural. You know, and BoobTube has got so violent in taking information down that would remotely, you know, help an ant on the street. That if they interfere with this, I swear I will publicly sue them, because this is not mismedical information. This is real life, beautiful, going back to the existence of self, our right, our birthright. Yeah.
Okay, so that's the first guy. I just broken up into two, so I just have to do this once. But yeah, my website's doing this stupid thing. It's making everything into one column for some reason in this gallery. But anyway, let's go to Egypt. So the Jed pillar, this is the spine. These top discs on it are the top discs of the vertebrae. You can see here, it's pretty clear how they show you. We're talking about the spine and the vertebrae. And the Ankh, again, is also a symbol that's representing this kind of energy form as it exists in the human body. And it's also a tool. When you hold it, it can actually, if it's built of a special kind of copper or gold, it can store energy, life energy, like a battery, and can be used to heal. And so then this is the Waz scepter, also it's called, which also holds and stores this life energy, this chi or prana, or ka is spirit. I think it's pretty close to that idea in Egyptian, animating life force. So you can see that all three of these go together, and they're really all related to the idea of getting the spinal fluid and energy flowing correctly so that all the rest flows correctly. And this is like the tree, this is like the trunk of the tree of life, and the tree of life is your nervous system. So this is like the central current that feeds all the lesser, you know. You get the spine flowing right, all the other meridians will flow right. We have it in the pine cone symbolism, and you know, the handbag he's holding in the other hand. I believe that's probably a battery with anode and cathode, and potentially energy is even running through his body and being used in this healing tool that can actually restore the flow of that energy. It's possible that's what it's about. The wristwatch, you know, could be like a kind of dial or a tuner for what
Yeah.
frequency.
So what we're looking at here, top left, is an Anunnaki. Is that a specific
All skull.
Anunnaki? Who is it?
I'm not sure exactly who this is,
Yeah,
but
because
he does have the elongated skull.
right, they are depicted largely similar. So unless we have a name, I mean, basically Anunnaki,
Yeah.
holding what looks like a pineal or a cone that represents the pineal gland. I asked a friend of mine; he's going to be coming forward with more information on the decor. I feel like we're missing the information in the decorative beard. We see this across the Egyptian pharaohs and kings and queens, because Hatshepsut, as a female pharaoh, also wore the decorative. I think there's a way more intel that we're missing on the beard, for example, and the helmets, etc. Just my little thought there. I know
Yeah, well,
others
we're
have had
definitely
this.
going to go deep on that in Egypt, but I'd love to look deeper into the Assyrian and Babylonian and Sumerian too. I do think there's a lot of that hidden in there. I mean, you see that it's a pine cone in the caduceus as well. And of course, the Vatican likes it. This is a giant pine cone at the Vatican. And though this looks orange, this is actually like white stone. And it's basically a giant pine cone in the center of a giant white dome, which is kind of like the inside of a skull.
Yeah.
So you see what's being represented with the peacocks next to it. And speaking of the Vatican, Michelangelo hid the pineal gland within the brain as God. So you can see that what he's representing here is actually the brainstem coming up in, and the pineal gland is God. Interesting
Trevor,
fact.
that's brilliant, Trevor. This is the creation of Adam. I love this painting, Michelangelo. I never realized that. You just blown me away. I never saw that. Thank you so much. But it's so obvious when you see it, right?
Right. And this is, you know, this has gotten at a little bit. Some people have seen this. If you haven't, it's mind blowing. And a little more about this is that I'd heard the Vatican actually censored Michelangelo and said that these two fingers were not allowed to touch. Michelangelo wanted to paint them touching. And the Vatican said, no, no direct contact with God. That's what we're for, essentially. So not only did they make him not touch, but they said God's finger had to be extended fully, and Adam's had to be kind of like, I'm not really trying hard enough. That's how they made him paint this. They said, no, you can't paint man having a direct contact with God. But he sure got one over on them, didn't he?
Indeed. Indeed.
He got his point across to us now. It's taken, you know, I don't remember who first discovered this, but brilliant. Ganesh as well. Here's the ventral, the view of the brain from underneath. You can read this later.
Okay, again, thank you. I have never put that together either. So, guys, those of you that don't know, Ganesh or Lord Ganesha, the elephant-headed god, is a Hindu icon, and people will pray to that god or say, hey, Ganesh, will you help me remove all my obstacles, please? Because we have like Archangel Michael and Gabriel, Raphael, and they all represent something, you know, for us to call on for a prayer. And that's what Ganesha, Lord Ganesha or Ganesh, the elephant-headed deity. I have never recognized that, Trevor. That is mind-blowing, mate. Mind-blowing. Thank you.
Well, this is just the beginning. But you see Kepri, the scarab beetle, has these same
Yes.
plates as the coronal sutures, Holy
Wow.
Grail. But let's get into the Eye of Horus here, because that's clearly something.
Key.
This is a paper in 2019 from 5 scholars, neurosurgeons, and stuff. And they discuss these correlations between this. It's all stuff that essentially Gary Osborne brought out in 1997. And I've been talking to him about this too, but he points out that this article actually shows that academia takes it seriously. And they came up with this overlay. So you can see what this is showing. You can pause this and look at it. But he also mentioned how these different parts of the eye, Gary was on this stuff back in 97, basically, but it corresponds to different senses and parts of the brain. And then, so this emblematic Temple of Solomon scheme has a lot to do with balance between these two pillars, but it's a lot about the masculine and feminine aspects of the two hemispheres of the brain, or the solar, lunar, and yang and yin. And so part of that, so basically part of this has to do with the masculine and feminine aspects of the brain, or that being used as a symbol of the two hemispheres. So the eye of Ra is the right eye, and it's the sun, and it's the view of the third eye, the cross section, from the perspective of the right brain. The eye of Horus is the moon, and just the opposite. So when you see this, if this was a face looking forward at you, this would be the left eye if they were turned around, and this would be the right, the moon and the sun. But when you're actually looking from the brain hemispheres, that's what it's telling you, the difference between, left-hand path, right-hand path. All this stuff is coming from brain anatomy, I think. And as you said, the Upper and Lower Egypt hats, when you combine them, you start getting this imagery that also starts mimicking the pineal gland. And the Urius disc, or the Urius cobra, it's called, on the headdress, is a symbol that Kundalini energy had already risen and is present at the third eye. So that's a sign of enlightenment, essentially. And here's another meme where you can kind of see the headdress mimicking these different parts of all this, the balance between the two. I've got a couple from Lifting the Veil here. Colin Smith, he made some good memes, and I'm grateful because I didn't want to have to make them all. Glad he's already got some stuff.
It can't just be one scholar, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, I like also that it shows that this is a universal thing. It's not just me saying it. There's a lot of people showing this stuff and catching on to it. And this is Khnum, who I brought up in the first interview also, because his hat's got everything. His hat's got the whole deal. Khnum is this ram-headed god who I was mentioning, or Netter, who's kind of the principle of this threshold between the physical and the spiritual, the DMT, the mystical experience. There's one of my pictures from his temple, Khnum's temple at Esna, and you see these beautiful, all these pillars put you in this other mind state. And this is on one of the bottom of the pillars. This very kind of psychedelic motif of art. This person who has a very big head, and you can almost see this brainstem looking thing coming up into it, which is interesting. And you can see that they're pointing to their mouth and saying either eat this or smoke this, but they're surrounded by these lilies, these Nile lilies, which I'm not sure if it's the blue lotus or the white lotus, but I was trying to figure that out. But basically, this person is hanging out by the Nile and saying, be with these lotus plants and eat them or something. And you got a Kundalini serpent over here. So you see all this imagery just reminding you of what we're talking about at this temple.
Yeah, and he's holding an ankh, an Egyptian ankh, which was their symbol to the key of life. Can you talk a little bit more about the ankh, please?
Right. Or actually, I think this is the crook shape, but the ankh, yeah, the ankh
looks like an ankh from here.
Yeah, well, it's got this long handle, so I think it's the crook, but it would make the same sense because, yeah, the ankh is a symbol of life being given, of the life energy from the sun, from the earth. So, yeah, that all ties into it and can be used to help stimulate those energy currents. And by the way, in the Ayurvedas, like the Ayurvedas are the Vedas that relate to health and wellness. They use a similar technology where you're kind of using this life energy to get these currents running again. Anyway, this is a cool picture of Khnum. But here's another one that also shows his headdress pretty good. And you can see the whole third eye. And you can see this water pouring out, which is also kind of related to Aquarius and to this pineal gland flow of DMT serum, basically. You got Sekhmet protecting him, the protector of this sacred wisdom. And then this is I think from the Valley of the Kings, one of the tombs. But you have the serpent in the sky, which is what John West named his book after, Celestial Serpent. And again, you have the balance between the two eyes, pineal gland in the center. And this is the ascending, rising spirit of the purified spirit after death, as it becomes in its ascended form. And who's this but Quetzalcoatl himself with the plumed serpent down here. So the serpent can mean a lot of things, but it depends on the content. And a lot of times with this wave thing, it's talking about energy and wavelengths and frequency and vibration. Here, Akhenaten and Nefertiti, again, this is where you see the Ankh is being given, life is being given from the sun to them both. But you also see this little Urius cobra, which might be hinting this is also an overlay of the skull, where you can see the cheekbones and their seats. And they are the two eyes with the center. So this is all stuff you can.
Or again, how we literally activate the third eye, the pineal, by looking at the sun at certain times, sun rising and sun downing. In between that, we're getting codes from that solar frequency that does activate the pineal.
Yes, yes, that's so important because of what's happening now. And as we approach this galactic equator we're in, we're getting this blast of galactic kind of energy coming through our sun and through photons, through ultraviolet light and gamma radiation. These are the light codes that are coming straight through our sun from the galaxy into the earth. And these things are activating parts of our DNA. So here's the brainstem looking a little bit like Horus, how he looks at the Temple of Edfu or any of his statues from the side view, at least. Another lifting the veil. And there's Thoth. His long beak looks a lot like this part of the third eye body poking out to the pituitary gland. And it also looks a lot like the alchemical lembic, which is used for the distillation of this elixir of life, the serum that you want to feed the pineal gland. So there's a relation between Thoth to alchemy to this actual bird beak that looks like this neural anatomy.
May I say something? Not to lose your thought, but as we're going through this, so as most people know, we have a left hemisphere, we have a right hemisphere, and in the back of the brain, we have what's called the limbic system, where all emotion passes through. There are people that believe the pineal is in between those two hemispheres, not so much forward frontal as we imagine it, as it's depicted in ancient iconography, but more towards the center. So the left and right hemisphere, pineal in the middle, that just kick-started that in me as we're going through, trying to bring everything in. I'm just back up here. I'm the backup singer for Trevor Grassi's presentation. But I think as we're going through and people are recognizing that the more information, you know, that I can support here too, is just going to be only helpful.
Yeah, it might get long, but that's okay with me. It's okay with me. It's okay with you. It's better to have these things understood and get your input. And alchemy, of course, the word actually means al-Kemet, or from Kemet, which is Egypt. So, or the black land, is what Kemet means. So alchemy actually means the art of Egypt, essentially. So it's taking directly from these symbols and turning them into this chemical metaphor rather than, all this incredible coding they're doing back then. And R.A. Schwaller de Lubeck says, if you observe well, your own heart will answer. And this is the guy who took apart the entire Temple of Man, the Temple of Luxor, and shows that it has this entire framework that relates to the divine, perfected, mature human male, specifically. There's temples of women elsewhere, but we'll get to that someday too. But this is his smaller book, The Temple in Man. His real book is The Temple of Man, which is huge. So he worked on the Temple of Luxor forever. He was the inspiration that really got John West looking at this stuff. And this picture really shows you the overall, what he came across was not only these divine proportions and harmonies built into it, but you can see there's this chamber centered exactly on the pineal gland. And there's incredible metaphors just woven into these incredible encryptions of high level, not only physical anatomy, but subtle anatomy. So it gets into the chakras too, into the subtle systems. And this is actually a piece of my art where I copied his and I drew a picture of the Temple of Luxor from the ground and threw some hieroglyphs up. But we're gonna have to get into Temple of Man maybe another time if we can talk again, because can't go all the way there tonight. But essentially it is telling us about the qualities of each of these organs in different parts of the body as they relate to the zodiac and to the planets. and the 7 planetary bodies of the chakras often, and how it corresponds to the cosmic microcosm and the microcosm. Yeah. And then this is a couple of images just quick from Dr. Randolph Stone I wanted to throw in here. These are pretty good. This one especially shows what it's supposed to look like when this energy is flowing. You end up creating this torus of energy around you, which is the beautiful universal shape of almost any energy field, electromagnetic field. Essentially, if you have your energy flowing through these meridians like this person does here, you're never going to get sick. You're never going to get pain, sore muscles. You're never going to get anything wrong with you. You're going to be in perfect health if this energy is flowing. It's when it gets blocked up that you can get sick, that you can get, and your vibration is different too. So you're constantly putting out this energy that's interacting with the world that can lead you not only to sickness or bad health, but to accidents and bad luck, if you want to call it that. So when you get the energy flowing correctly, almost nothing can hurt your body. There's one last picture of the top of the temple and also the front view of the Temple of Luxor. These 2 front pylons are pineal gland lands right in the middle of this lintel on the entryway. Mm. It's centered in the temple view too. So that's from Magical Egypt, the show by John West and Chance Gardner. And I'm going to get into that in a second, but this is the Temple of Man down here, and it's actually connected to the Temple of Karnak, which I was saying last interview too, is also, this is the temple of organic growth and phi and Fibonacci numbers and fractals and Genesis and fertility and things like that. And so these temples, this is kind of like conception, and this is like final manifestation of perfection. From birth as a fetus up to its final form. And this avenue between them, which was just opened up last year, this big parade, it's lined with sphinxes, ram sphinxes, all the way. That turn into man sphinxes at the other end. So it's very heavy duty symbolism here. It's kind of like an umbilical cord energy too, connecting the start to the finish.
Yeah, it's amazing. I've been there, Karnak and Luxor, the temples. It's just mind blowing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I kind of show how the placenta in the tree of life, it looks like the nervous system in the placenta even in these other views. And you see the silver cord as well. It's like this this tether. Oh yeah, and before, well, you had said something else about the chakras being anchor points. That's a good way to say it, because I think they're anchoring points between the physical body and the higher bodies.
I think the chakra system, the electromagnetic system within us, I think it anchors in the soul. That is my belief, soul spirit. That is my personal belief. And the silver cord, as you mentioned, there are many, many people, different cultures that talk of the silver cord as when the person dies, they are still connected to their soul via their silver cord. And it is said that the person that died will stay around their body for 3 days. And that trinity of days follows through many, many centuries and different aspects, different thinking, different religious views, different religions, different cultures and civilizations. We often find very similar energy throughout them all.
Right. Okay. I just paused it for a second. I got to run to the bathroom.
Okay.
Okay. Look, I learned how to use the pause button.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, this is where we get into Magical Egypt, and yeah, my friend Vanessa and Chance, the first season of this is all about John's work. It's incredible. It gets into Rick Strassman with the DMT, and he's talking about the Book of the Dead or the Book of, Coming Forth by Day. It's actually the more accurate description of that title or translation of it is the Book of Coming Forth by Day. And there's a lot of different underworld texts within the funerary texts and stuff. But essentially, the Book of Coming Forth by Day, if you think about what that means, it's like waking up in the morning. And so it's really more the Book of Awakening than the Book of the Dead is a better translation. So anyway, dig into that. And the second season of Magical Egypt, it's not as much about John's work, but it gets into a lot of these other people researching this secret steganography of the symbolism of the brainstem hidden in artwork. So this has a lot of revelations that are up to your own mind to judge here, but I think it's quite stunning. So these are the ram sphinxes on that causeway between Karnak and Luxor. And you see they have this same kind of like Khnum head, these ram horns around them. And they've got these little guys standing underneath them. So that's interesting, isn't it? When you look directly at them and you look at a brainstem, you see that this snout kind of thing looks very much like this. All these things are proportioned right to how the brainstem actually works. And I'm just going to show you a few of these through so you can get an idea, an overview, because this is the biometric template of the articulations of the different sections of the brainstem and how they're proportional to this hidden picture within this ram. And you have the two hemispheres of the brain represented by these horns perfectly.
Trevor, you know, I'm going to say what people are going to think. There looks like two big breasts. Can you go back to that and explain that? Are they representing the hemispheres of the brain? It looks like breasts with nipples right there.
These are kind of lining up to these little mouth parts here, but we'll get to that in 1 second. Actually,
Okay.
There's some breasts here soon enough.
Well,
I mean that because there's actually some female representations of sculptures and fertility that are just past this part, but I'll be there in 1 second. So I'll just say this is another painting of Jesus showing these ram horn kind of forms that also match up to the cross section of the brain. So you can see that a little better here and here with the ram sphinx as well, how these things are all kind of showing the same thing, and specifically this with open ventricles, or this is the closed ventricles. So this is a depiction of a brain with an open third eye above Christ. And this comes up in alchemy too. You see these same two sides of the brain much later when the Hermetic science comes back into Europe and really helps kick off the Renaissance. You have what's called the alchemical wedding or the alchemical marriage of the male and female, sun and moon. Same deal. You're turning on this essential thing by balancing your brain, by balancing all things. And that comes up in alchemy a lot. You also have these kind of mummiform Osiris statues that seem to be saying the same thing. And again, the hat with this stuff. I'm just blowing through this because you can look at it as long as you like after. But then we get to the female versions, which also are seeming to represent the same thing or different parts of it. The Ephesian Diana, Artemis of Ephesia, Ishtar and Inanna, in this slightly different view of the brainstem. Ishtar again showing these basic forms kind of represented, hidden within this. But like you said, there's two breasts here and these tiny little spaces in the middle. Very interesting. Venus of Willendorf. These are all things that, could be not. You can interpret it how you like. We're like thinking these are just very strangely formed fertility effigies or something. Maybe they were a lot more than that. These are some side views of some of them. So Gary wrote this incredible series of stuff, which gets into the scarab, gets into all this symbolism, and it's actually broken up. This is a view of all these different articles that are part of what's called the Gate of God that Gary Osborne came out with. So that's linked in my page. You can check that out for sure. It goes deep on that stuff. And then we come back to Hermes, Hermes Trismegistus, and he's showing us again this union of solar and lunar principles and the fire in between that. This is a Kundalini fire. And some more alchemy here. You again have the king and queen, the sun and the moon, the materia prima, the primary substance, which is this primary substance in the spine. And this is also your sexual energy too. It's called libido. So this is the same kind of substance that can create a baby, but it can also create anything else. And that's what the materia prima is kind of referencing, that it's this everything in one substance. or the Lepidus philosophorum, the philosopher's stone, is the third eye. That's what it is. And you're doing the alchemical process within your body, distilling this liquid into the philosopher's stone, the elixir of life. So that you can just see it all through alchemy in these balanced images. This one, the alchemical hermaphrodite, is the same idea, this balance of the brain hemispheres. The tarot card, the lovers, this isn't only about romantic love or anything. It's also about this creative state you can access when you are balanced between male and female in your mental zone. And you see the serpent on the tree and the other tree of life right behind them. So that's also, the tarot is also coming straight from the netters and from this system of different forces of nature from Egypt interpreted into a deck of cards. And this is from Steve Kalek, who's also showing the alchemical wedding with the sun and moon. And I want to shout him out because he's one of the greatest alchemists, I think, in the world. You could read this later, but he posted this just a couple days ago with this picture showing you the exact relationship here. We are the alembic, we are the distillery, basically, and this process happens within us. We purify this substance within our body. It's all built into us. It's all meant to happen as long as it's not prevented. And if we keep going in that direction. And Adam McLean also gets very deep into not so much practical lab alchemy, but the imagery and the symbolism. And so he's got a lot of books I link to also. This is it without color, before he colorized it. And this is my version. Just took it into Photoshop and I put it on top of a skull. And I don't think you need to say much more about that. You can see what's going on here. It's the third eye, the sun and the moon again. So there's the chakras, sun and the moon, again, in alchemy. This is another little piece from Gary Osborne, I thought interesting, from Gate of God article, where Inanna, each of her layers of her dress, when they're removed, removes the qualities of that specific chakra. So again, a metaphor of the chakras in this symbolism. And the alchemical process itself is known to have 7 stages within the process. So again, these are the chakras you're climbing up to get to the philosopher's stone. It's often shown as a bird or with the wings or the ascended spirit. That is what the open pineal gland would end up being, or the whole third eye. Okay, so this is a little bit crazy. This is coming from Alan Green. And Alan Green did this decryption of William Shakespeare, because now we're getting to the Renaissance. And essentially, these were all the sonnets that Shakespeare ever wrote, added up to 153, or actually 154. But 153 would be a perfect pyramidal number. And he's not the first to suggest this, because the first 17 are a set, and they kind of establish this base layer. If you reduce it by 1 each layer, the second set of sonnets comes up to this flat layer, and the third set up to here. And you basically have the great pyramid looking thing with one missing capstone. So if you take all of the sonnets that Shakespeare published in his whole life, they're all the sonnets he wrote, but they're all published as one thing in this folio, which I can't get deeper into today, which I wish I could, but
so you've got a base of 17, and then the next level is a line of 7, which we know 7 is the physical.
Yeah, well, the next one would be 16 and reduced by 1 each level. So it's clearly seeming to make this pyramidal structure by how he divides them up. But the top is not placed with a capstone of 1, but 2 poems, which kind of upsets it almost. But Alan Green is seeing that this is related to the Great Pyramid because of other reasons too I can't show. But essentially at the top, these 2 last poems are actually the same poem, told from basically 2 halves of the brain. So Cupid laid by his brand and fell asleep. The little love god lying once asleep. He's saying the same poem told from the 2 halves of the brain.
Yeah. And
he's showing us that that's what the capstone is on the pyramid. At the end of all these sonnets, you have to balance in this perfect balance. He even, every single punctuation mark and letter there's exactly 500 characters in both of these. So these two poems are perfectly balanced, and they're just expressing the same thing, which is also talking about balance within the poem, like this by that I prove, love's fire heats water, water cools not love, all these balance between the elements and stuff. So this is very, very tricky to describe quickly, but basically there was a line from Hamlet that referenced, I will find where truth is hid, though it were hid indeed within the center. And Alan Green looks to the center of this pyramid. It brings up sonnet number 113. So what that one says is this: since I left you, mine eye is in mine mind, and that which governs me to go about doth part his function, and is partly blind, seems seeing, but effectually is out. So this is not only one of the first times in the English language where we're given this concept of the mind's eye, but he's talking about Horace essentially, and the eye being pulled out, being partly blind. And Horace is actually, well, in Hamlet, there's this one other line where we hear about the mind's eye. So Hamlet's like, would I have met my dearest foe in heaven, or had I seen the day, Horatio, my father, methinks I see my father. Horatio says, where, my lord? And he says, in my mind's eye, Horatio. Horace, Horatio is an association made here through the names, but the real Horace is actually Hamlet, whose father, Osiris, was murdered by his uncle, Set. And then Set tries to get with Isis, his mother, and Hamlet goes crazy. This is the same story as Horace. So Hamlet comes from these other myths that have interpreted from the Osiris myth all the way up to Shakespeare's day. And when he's talking about the mind's eye, he's referencing Horace, and he's referencing that mythology. So Shakespeare has this very, very deep connection to Egypt, to the Great Pyramid, to this whole mythos, and would love to get into this deeper another time too. But to tie this in further, it comes to Da Vinci.
Vitruvian Man. I love this image. Vitruvian Man.
Vitruvian Man time. Yeah. So this was Robert Edward Grant, who was working with Alan Green. Also, they were both looking at the Vitruvian Man and seeing if it had similar codes. And turns out the angle from the navel to the corner and straight up is 51.843 degrees, which is the exact side slope angle of the Great Pyramid. So we do have a connection right off the bat, and he discovered a lot more connections as well. In this video, it's called the Real Da Vinci Code, but I've got all this stuff linked again. Anyway, Da Vinci writes up in his strange mirror writing, reduce the man by 1/14 in scale. And Da Vinci cuts the Vitruvian Man into 14 pieces with these lines, right? So who else was cut into 14 pieces? Osiris. His body was cut into 14 pieces, and he was in fact reduced by 1/14 because Isis didn't find one of the pieces.
Right.
So this is a clear reference to the myth of Osiris again, just him cutting it into 14. But then he goes on to find that these lines drawn onto the Vitruvian Man actually align up with the navel at the base of the Great Pyramid to where these chambers begin. And if you cut this distance exactly in half is where the moon begins, which he says is showing the 14 phases of the ascent, waxing and waning moon, pinpointing the Queen's chamber. So what Robert Grant is saying is that Da Vinci is actually showing us the chakras within the Great Pyramid, within the Vitruvian Man, and that this scheme Da Vinci is showing us is showing exactly where all these chambers are supposed to be. And potentially it suggests that there's 2 more chambers for the third eye and crown chakra of the Great Pyramid. So these could be chambers we haven't found yet. That's pretty intriguing in itself, but it is shocking that all of these line up to these lines just so. And I kind of mentioned the muon scanning process, and they did find this big above the Grand Gallery. This was the scans that happened just before these latest ones I brought out last interview. But I did remember them saying that there was a few anomalies up towards the top of the Great Pyramid as well. And I haven't been able to find any recently that showed that, but I do remember hearing that initially. And it could possibly just be a softer density of stone and not an actual chamber. But I did remember hearing that there was potentially a couple more things up at the top, smaller ones. So there could be a third eye chamber, a crown chakra chamber up in the top of the Great Pyramid as well. Who knows? And then, of course, we get into the Eye of Providence. I thought I had one more picture, but okay. The Eye of Providence, the all-seeing eye, you know, got to go here now. This is one of the earlier pictures. You know, God favors this undertaking essentially, or this renewal. Annua Coeptis is another earlier one, is you know, to favor or smile upon an endeavor or undertaking essentially. And Novus Ordo Seclorum could be New World Order, Order of the Ages, renews, the renewal of the world ages, something of that effect. But New World Order is fair enough, you know, 1776. So this was actually the what Ben Franklin actually was voting for this one as the motto, which is kind of like, oh, this one would have been a bit better. Rebellion to tyrants is obedience to God. I kind of like that one actually. But this is what we ended up with right here. And this has a lot of symbolism in it. I can go very deep on the dollar at some point, but it's full of symbolism. There's 72 stones used in this, which is half of 144, and it's you know, the distance between 2 points on a 5-pointed star. Like we said last time, is the distance between Giza and Angkor Wat. And so it's some sacred geometry in there, or the numerology being used. I'm going to come back there in 1 second and show that.
Good.
Yeah, this image is the Hamsa hand, it's called. And so this also goes back to 3000 BC, possibly, very old. And it's a symbol that's used as protection, to mean this God's awareness, or something that's protecting against evil spirits. And you know, it's been called the evil eye. Or so this is an old symbol that's kind of along the same lines as the all-seeing eye, meaning this ultimate consciousness, which is certainly meant to represent within our minds God, or the creative force or source. That's what it's clearly supposing to represent. You know, that's what it's claiming for itself. And this divine providence is what it's basically getting into. Anyway, here's a decent book on that. I can go further on this. And Manly Hall actually goes much further in this book. So he gets into where the seal originally came from, and that's worth reading. But it's a very strange legend about how it came from this hooded, cloaked figure, came up and just handed it to Thomas Jefferson, essentially, and then disappeared. And Jefferson showed the rest of the guys in the committee, and this guy just vanished. That story's in here, a few other good stories that are very interesting about its origins. But then we come to later, Nicholas Roerich was this Russian mystic painter. And he was good friends with Manly Hall also, but he also claimed to have gone to Shambhala, and he wrote this book about Shambhala, and he painted this painting. Oh no, got selected somehow. It turned purple. This painting he painted of Shambhala. Hold on 1 sec, somehow I selected it and it turned purple. And so he claimed that he actually went to Shambhala and came back, and that he got this secret stone of destiny from there. And this was called the Chintamani stone, but it's known as the stone of destiny. He brought it back to America, and he was obsessed with it. So come on. Oh, okay, perfect. This is the stone of destiny. So I went to his museum in New York City. You can see this statue of him holding this very precious stone. And this is called the Master Building on the west side of Manhattan. And all these Freemasons built this skyscraper for Nicholas Roerich. And he and Manly Hall used to hang out on these top floors with actually Joseph Campbell as well, and a lot of other interesting people. And, you know, I don't know that, I don't think, as far as I know, Roerich was ever a Mason himself. I'm not even sure about Manly Hall. Like you say, this could have been just a thing they tried to put onto him, but it's generally accepted that Manly did become one later. But Freemasons just built this for Nicholas Roerich, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And supposedly they placed this stone of destiny in the foundation stone, cornerstone of this building. So I got a picture of, this is the stone that supposedly has this stone of destiny, is related also to the one in Scotland and to the Bible, like the stone Jacob has as his pillow when he dreams, and interesting stuff. Anyway, this is a film about it, but it's, at least I haven't seen this actually, but it has a decent picture to show these two were kind of friends, and through this guy Wallace, it's supposed that they influenced Franklin Roosevelt to put the seal onto the dollar, which is an interesting part of the story, because I don't think either of these two guys necessarily wanted it to be in the final context it was in. I don't know, it's hard to say, but they are kind of tied up with this story, and a lot of people assume they had some hand in it. But Roerich himself said this: "You are quite right to be terrified that Dollar is a king. It is not even a king, but a fierce tyrant and enslaver." So I feel like Nicholas Roerich really was a righteous kind of character, and he was really trying to help people see this. And I feel that in general about Manly Hall too, because he had this magazine called The All-Seeing Eye for a long time. This was 1923. And the big difference to me is that the people I think are on my side are the people who publish, the people who tell the world about this stuff, and the people who explain how it works. And so, you know, I don't know, I judge Manly Hall by the things he's written, and he's written incredible things. He's tied so much together, like you said, the secret teachings of all ages. All of this was long before, if he did become a Mason, it was before that, because he didn't want to have restrictions on what he could publish. So All Seeing Eye, you see, he's publishing this magazine about it. There's no one in the country who's this obsessed with the All Seeing Eye or the third eye symbolism as he was. So yeah, as you were saying at the beginning, the 33rd degree represents the 33 vertebrae along the spine. And this is what's in Masonry. You enter Masonry through these first 3 degrees, and then you can either go up the York Rite or the Scottish Rite. And the Scottish Rite is from Scotland, where most of the Masonry started after the Templars were disbanded. So on the Scottish Rite, you have these 33 vertebrae to ascend, 30 more past the initial 3 degrees. And you can get up to 32nd degree as quick as you want, but 33rd is invite only. So that's important. And kind of represents the third eye. And this is kind of the metaphor that's encoded at the heart of all of Freemasonry. So some of these secrets or whatever are coming out more and more these days, but this is stuff that has been protected, kept, held by, you know, whatever these secrets are at the top that all Masons are trying to get up to see, have this whole metaphor of being the third eye, enlightenment, at the top of the spine.
Right,
So,
which is ideally what the enslavers of this whole planet wish to be kept, but it's too late because too many people know all of the realities and everyone is talking now. Just wanted to say earlier, when we look at the pyramid, when we look at the dollar bill, that symbology with the all-seeing eye, you mentioned the numerology, the sacred gematria. You said there are 72 building blocks upon that pyramid, and then we see the space between the top of the pyramid and the all-seeing eye, which creates the point of the pyramid, the top of the pyramid with the eye. There is a book, the Kabbalah, I think it was Yehuda Berg. I liked him. I enjoyed that whole Kabbalah journey that I went on myself years ago in LA. There is a book, and it's called The 72 Names of God. And again, in numerology, we do see the 72, the number 72, come up timeless times in different variances and different systems and different philosophies and thinking. So I didn't want to skip past that bit without saying that, because again, as we are sharing your beautiful presentation, I feel on my channel, we have a duty to everybody that gets to see this to confirm and validate their own thinkings too, and to help with their confirmation and or awakening at the same time.
Yeah, and the 72 is also important in the precessional cycle. It takes 72 years for the sky to move a single degree out of 360 within the whole cycle. So it's, again, one of these harmonics that applies to all these things, to geometry, to number, to all these relationships of positionings, and very interesting. Yeah.
Final thing for me, the G in the that's Satan. I believe they all worship Satan, the devil. Truly, I deeply believe that, and that the all-seeing eye, the separation from all the different gods, that Satan puts itself at the top, and I believe that that is truly what that is. That God that they worship in the Bible, the God that they worship on the dollar bill, that is Satan.
Well, yeah, it's like I'm very careful not to try and say things I don't have total evidence of, but I feel very strongly that up above the 33rd degree, at least, there's a lot of that type of thing going on. And I think a lot of Masons may not know about it, but I don't
Well, it's been
know.
infiltrated, Trevor, and it's so sad. There are so many
Exactly.
beautiful Masons that they are for the brotherhood. They look after each other. They are so caring and so lovely, and it means so much to them to go through the different degrees and initiations. But ultimately, there's infiltration, as there is in every system in the planet. And
Yeah,
then we have the
exactly. It's
female.
infiltration, and at the highest rank. So it's something that
Totally.
might all be above the 33rd degree. For all I know, I'm not inside. I'm not going in there to find out. But I do have friends who are Freemasons that I know. That I really trust them, and I think they mean to be doing something well. And it's kind of like a Catholic. I don't blame Catholics for what the Vatican does.
Oh God, no, absolutely not. No. When you're enslaved in your mind and you are raised in fear of dying or going to hell, that's all they need. That's it. The greatest weapon on our planet is fear. The greatest weapon to destroy, to genocide, to anything is fear. That's it.
Right.
Fear.
Right. Mm-hmm. So I tell any Masons I know, well, clean your own house. If you are a good person, if you are an upright standing Mason, a noble, righteous person, then clean your house out. Make sure you're not supporting the stuff that I think is up there if you look for it. So, be a good Mason if that's what you believe in. There are metaphors supposedly saying that this is to make you more charitable, more balanced, and more aware. If that's the truth, then, clean your own house. But it's clear that the symbolism is at the root of it, and that the third eye is at the root of it. The sun and moon principles, balancing, all this symbolism is the same thing. A checkerboard floor of night and day, good and evil. This clearly Masonic symbolism. Supreme Council of the 33rd. The symbolism of the cross, of the eye, all this stuff. And this is the dollar bill as I've decrypted it in Photoshop, where you do see there is this inverted pentagram that spells M-A-S-O-N. Okay, that's just a fact that's on there.
Well done. That's a really that's your artwork right there. That's your artwork.
This is my artwork in Photoshop. I'm not the first one to find this. Many people have found this, but I made a piece of art with this because I wanted to show how this works. And of course, it matches the same angle. This angle is important as well.
Yeah, very clever. I've never seen that, Trevor. So I just want to say, wow, thank you for sharing. I've never seen that before. Yeah.
I think pentagrams aren't necessarily evil in themselves if they're upright. Inverted generally does mean a kind of control or trying to use your own willpower to manipulate the world to your advantage type of idea. Often, not necessarily always, but pretty much. If it's inverted, it sounds like it's not a great thing. So it's a little, I don't know if this is really what Rourke wanted or what Manly Hall wanted. I don't know. So I did do one other piece of Photoshop work on the reverse side of this seal, which was also not my original discovery. I saw someone anonymously scrawled with a line on this image, but yeah, basically I just went into Photoshop and did a little bit of shading on the reverse side of the seal. I'll give you a second with this one. But this is just with a little black shading. And I think there might be, a gray ET here.
It does look very gray. That does look like a gray ET, first impression. And there are those that say at the top of the 33rd degree is a gray terrestrial. I mean, maybe not now anymore, but certainly, less than 3 years ago, there was still that thinking within the realms and the construct of the Masonics. I want to mention the female side of the Freemasons, which is called the Eastern Star. It does exist. There is a female branch of the Freemasons, the Eastern Star. So you guys can go look that up too.
Yeah. There's a few co-ed branches, the Memphis Mizraim, this Egyptian one I know lets women, and there's a few that are starting to do that. But yeah, I wouldn't know. It's certainly possible that that's what's going on. I'm not claiming to know, but that's an interesting picture to me. So this is another piece of art I did to kind of try and take the symbol back a little bit and take it out.
I like it.
There.
Yeah.
This is what it's really saying to me, and I'm saying, like, this is a symbol that I know it has this very profound importance to us. And the whole metaphor of the Great Pyramid is being unfinished and truncated off at the top, and it's missing this capstone. It's missing the third eye, and so it's a metaphor for humanity working on opening it up. So for me, I don't mind having this eye in the pyramid imagery all over, because it is kind of waking us up to the pyramid, but I don't like it being inscribed inside this system of control within, if you look at this entirely, I think the message would be between Anyuk, Coeptus, it's saying essentially the all-seeing eye of God. It's saying God has favored the idea that Masons control humanity's third eye and the knowledge of the Great Pyramid. That's kind of the implication. And when you hold a dollar and use a dollar, you're kind of unwittingly consenting to that. And
Right.
this is how all this,
Right.
black magic and things work.
Right.
It's all into your subconscious. You're not meant to consciously see it. You're not meant to consciously see that.
Right, right. And again, Trevor, when we look at how the creators of this symbology put the eye, left the gap, which causes separation from humanity genuinely connecting to the divine aspect of its own, his own, herself, God's self, his own, herself, God's self. And for me, the goal of the evil is to own the soul of every living being that isn't in their gang, that isn't in the crime families, the governments, the senators, the money families at the top, because they put themselves at the top within that higher pyramid. But the I, the living, the life there, their God is the devil, Satan. So it's so sad to me how devastating it's going to be when Christians finally and Catholics finally understand, oh my God, the Bible, God is Lucifer. They just didn't realize that. But the thing is, the heartbreak for all of us is we're on this massive global awakening. Every single being is in this awakening of self to some degree or other. And it's beyond devastating. Those that have been on a long sleep, those who have been, in a trance from the religion that they live in. Like for me, it was violent Pentecostal, violent evangelical, and then at 7, when I saw the Jesus and I saw angelic beings in my room, I realized, my God, adults are liars. Adults are liars. And they had kept, and then the adults in the church were so scared of going to hell. They were so scared of it. So when I'm telling them, oh my gosh, I saw Jesus, I saw the angels, I see this, I see that, they're like, oh my God, you're evil. You evil child. Oh, you live in the poor part of England. Oh yeah, no, you're bad. You're a bad kid. And they prayed the devil out of me, the idiots. So at 7, it was already anchored in me that the lies and the deceiving of the people. And I never believed that God that we were told to worship was a good God. I smite thee. No, mate, I smite you. How dare that be a thing? I remember going with my grandmother to the church to watch a film, and it was on the end of times, the swarms, the giant bees and the giant locusts, and it was terrifying. Then I remember walking to the bus stop, my grandma's crying. I said, why are you crying, Nan? She's like, are you not scared? She's Scottish. Are you not scared of what's going to happen? I'm like, no. I said, because I don't believe that. She's like, oh, don't say that. Don't say that. He'll hear you. God will hear you say that. But I realized what bullshit, what evil, wicked enslavement of mind, body, and soul of all of us. So You know, people might see it as arrogant or, oh, don't say that. But we've got to get out of our own prison, man. We got to break out of our own prison, because we are a beautiful soul. We are a divine, we are Vitruvian, we are the blueprint of humanity. We are allowed to step up and out,
Yeah.
and be. And that symbology, I love what you did there. I feel like you brought the beautiful, simple, Zen, peaceful Buddha almost,
Yeah.
eloquence, and brought that down into to alchemize. But please speak more to why you did this particular
Yeah.
piece of work.
Well, all what you say, I'm gonna get a little bit more into some of the Bible stuff too in a second, which is very interesting to me to see how, yeah, the difference between control structures and things that actually try and teach people what they're trying to know, what Jesus actually taught versus the church. Quite different, but some of it actually got slipped into the Bible over the church's heads, I'd say, at the Council of Nicaea. So I can show some of that in a minute, but very important about this is my belief that at the core of all this mind manipulation and controlling the entire population, it's not just about creating new symbols to represent this stuff. It's about using symbols that already have positive power, like the swastika. You know, taking the swastika as sacred to every nation, culture in all of history, and then using that, putting a dark tint on something that is already embedded into the cultural psyche, you know. And we're going to be, you know, people are going to be remembering past lives, and they're going to look back and be like, remembering the swastika as something beautiful, a symbol of
Beautiful.
harmony. And they're going to be confused by this because of what the Nazis did to it, or the name ISIS, you know, or any of these symbols of something sacred. They profane them, the people who are doing this stuff. So
Yeah, you know, Trevor, thank you so much. It's so important that people understand that even though Hitler used the swastika, he didn't create the swastika. He took that from the Hindus, from the ancient Indians, from the different cultures. As you said, it shows up that beautiful. When we decide to look at the swastika as a beautiful image, we take away the power of the darkness, the dark side. We remove it, by our
yeah,
decision to not allow the darkness and the inversion, to,
exactly.
whoa, I'm getting energy wax here saying that. Whatever.
Exactly.
So
Well,
no,
that's why we're having this talk right now, because
right,
when you see this pentagram, when you see this ET, it's like that stuff doesn't work on you anymore. You just got cured of that stuff, you know, of that specific one. You're
right.
understanding that this symbol is thrown at us because the real trick is they don't want us talking about this publicly. So we don't
Uh-huh.
have any accepted cultural meaning to these symbols. We have to choose it individually because it's too taboo to talk about it.
Right.
So let's talk about it, you know,
Yeah,
let's talk about
absolutely.
it.
Yeah.
Um,
I want to mention to people as well, as they're looking to study, and if you want to see some of the ancient symbology, you can also, to get more context for your own past lives or not, whether you believe that or not, I really don't care at this stage, but there are bodies of work. One of them is called the Upanishads, beginning with U, the Upanishads. There is another body of work called the Vedas, Veda'', the Vedas. You could also look through the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita is one of the ancient Bibles of India, connecting with the Hindu religion also. The Hindus have 5 holy Bibles, five.
mhm.
And the Hindus acknowledge metaphysics, they acknowledge clairvoyance. That's where you'll find images of Ganesh, Lord Ganesha, the elephant god who you showed an image of earlier. But I will stop talking now. Please continue.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Yeah, I think a lot of the Hindu knowledge came from Atlantis, just like the swastika, I believe, came from Atlantis. I think it's one of the earliest things. And even the Vedas, they came from oral traditions, so they could be earlier than Sanskrit, you know. And they have a great way of doing it. It's called Sruti, inspired wisdom. And any prophet, any inspired sage can add on to this material. So it's much better than here's the canon, we're the church. This is another picture I did showing
Oh,
meditation as the key to accessing the higher self.
it's
Key
gorgeous,
within.
Trevor.
Thank you. This is just a photo of it. I got to get a scan, but yeah, you can see these in the gallery. This is important. You got the FDA trying to list all these great herbs and things as substances so they can be easier to regulate them. You know, so this is taking away our holistic treatments, taking
Yeah.
away
And just briefly on that, I know we want to tread carefully because the bullies that own boob tube, you know, oh no, don't tell the truth. Guys, if you like, find out who developed the FDA, who owns the FDA, who owns the decisions to pass something through FDA. Just go look, guys. Go
This
look.
stuff got bought and sold a long time ago to the highest bidders. You know, the only people who can bid on owning big pharma. You know, the people who put fluoride in our toothpaste and water. You know, put it together, folks. I'm not going to have to go into this, but this is what your pineal gland looks like when it's fluoridated and calcified. You're not going to see anything through this eye. You know, this is what they do to make sure we're not using it, to make sure we don't have power, to make sure we don't turn ourselves on, access our full biology.
So, you know, purify your water, get a system, you know, boil the water before you drink it. Do not use regular toothpaste with fluoride in it. Use a unfluoridated toothpaste. The fluoride that you're talking about, which does calcify the pineal gland, it does interfere with the calcite. The calcite that's naturally in the pineal gland. It does interfere with the piezoelectricity, which is your God spark. Your God spark. So yeah, I use something a toothpaste called Tom's. Like it's obviously it's just all like, you know, or make your own. It's not difficult, but also watch out because fluoridation is also called sodium fluoride.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, you know, yeah, it's like this pineal gland is like a little tiny raisin all shriveled up in our brains, but it's really supposed to be more like a grape. It's really supposed to be more this, it's really supposed to be the size of an actual eyeball, like a ping pong ball sized. You know, it's supposed to be like a full eye. It's shriveled up and ruined because this is generations of this organ being attacked within us. It's receded, it's shrunken up. It's supposed to be a real eye. And of course, it's the frequencies too. This is 432 versus 440.
Oh yeah.
Light reflected off water. You can see the harmony versus just bland blast of cacophony. And who was promoting 432, the harmony? Bob Marley, Beethoven, Hendrix. Here's what Hendrix said, right? When the power of love overcomes the love of power, the world will know peace.
Yeah.
So these people who were killed for promoting 432 tuning, they were also killed because they were promoting love and peace. Of course. So to Tesla, basically saying 6 and 8 hertz is where the humans are. 6 and 8 hertz. 6 and 8 hertz is where the Earth resonates. And this is the Schumann frequency. Is it's 7.83 hertz at the moment. It fluctuates over time, but the whole biological system, the brain, the Earth itself, work on the same frequencies. If we can control that resonant system electronically, we can directly control the entire mental system of humankind. Now, of course, he's not talking about this in a negative way. He means you can promote health within yourself. But other people did feel like they could control the entire mental system of humankind. And that's where we get Operation Mockingbird and the motion picture as a weapon of psychological warfare, as the CIA uses it. The potentials of motion pictures for psychological warfare, for you know, it can serve many diversified functions. It can present new facts concerning important problems on which people are ignorant and which they must be informed, and clarify complicated problems. You can mind control a whole nation. Here's a patent the US government uses for a method and system for altering consciousness using electromagnetic waves of various frequencies. Okay, so this isn't hypothetical.
No, these are weaponized programs that governments around the world have been executing into people, children, in vitro, born, older children, for millennia.
That's what this is about. This was from 1983 from the CIA, that was just released in 2003, but it's called the Analysis and Assessment of the Gateway Process. So this entire massive document, I linked to this too, right to the CIA reading room, and you can read it all. This tells you all kinds of things about the pineal gland.
I'm bearing in mind that
this is MK Ultra. This is what they're learning from MK Ultra.
Yeah, and bearing in mind that the agencies, they apparently they have to release information from 50 years ago plus, and so, but a lot of it is redacted. They're only ever going to let out what they have decided, you know, humanity is going to have access to. But yes, And
Yeah.
I think it was today or yesterday that was scrolling through. Oh, I know who it was. It was Patricia Corey. I don't know her. I've just seen her a few times. She's written a book. She's quite the character. And she's a really passionate lady, a real activist in truth. And I saw her and she said, someone said that Q is the CIA. I
Yeah.
mean, could easily, I mean, whatever, because
Anyone could say that. Yeah. Who knows? Well, they definitely had a very deep interest, the CIA, in what the pineal gland could do, the third eye could do. This is one of the pages from that document showing some more, but yeah, it gets into telekinesis, telepathy, time travel, remote viewing, astral projection, you name it. Anything the pineal can do, they started studying it. And if you've seen The Men Who Stare at Goats, you know that our government did have this PSI program, and I'm going to mention a little more of that in a second, actually, so I'll come back. But William Casey, CIA director in '81, says, "We'll know our disinformation program is complete when everything the American public believes is false." I think that says a lot in itself.
yeah, it does. Yeah.
Here's the nervous system manipulation by electromagnetic fields from monitors. This is your computer sending waves into your brain to make sure your third eye doesn't turn on. This is the patent for it. You can look up the patent. There's the number right there. This is weaponized technology within our homes.
So take a picture, guys. There's your proof right there on screen. Don't skip on by and just go to the next broadcast. Like, do some internal intelligence, guys. This is your time.
Yeah. By the way, if you try and pull these off, you won't be able to do it. But if you go to the gallery view, you can pull them right off the page and drop them on your desktop, and you can take all these images. So if you do it from the gallery view, you can do it. But yeah, it's getting worse and worse. Now we're strapping this stuff right to our heads, and our phones are just radiating us. This is where we want to be. Theta and alpha here, like Tesla said, 6 to 8 hertz. This is inner peace, deep meditation and sleep. This is creative flow state. These are where we want to be. And so you can use binaural beats is using 2 frequencies at once to stimulate you into these different states. And you can just look that up on YouTube, listen to binaural beats. And this goes way back too, because the frequencies were used in this chamber at Malta, the hypogeum, is known to resonate at 111 hertz. And this is related to what's called the 11th harmonic. And when you have a frequency together with a frequency 11 times itself, you get these very interesting effects. And so this vibrational medicine goes way back. In fact, my man Pythagoras was doing it with bow and strings, ringing bells, playing flutes. He was healing people with vibration all the way back in his time. Pythagoras, the great genius, Mm-hmm. So he's already on this harmonic healing. And Robert Flood in the Renaissance era too, he's showing this kind of stuff. Einstein says future medicine will be the medicine of frequencies. Mm-hmm. And so we get into this. Let me open this up a little bit, actually. Whoops. Oh, no, not that. Okay, I'm kind of missing part of these shots. But yeah, this is another article I wrote that I was going to share. Whatever, I'll just go back. It's basically all about med beds and stuff, which we've been hearing about. Which I get into the history of them and some of these vibrational therapies that have already existing. So I have this whole article that I'll just run through a couple of these topics in it quick. Wilhelm Reich, who created orgonite and orgone. And these boxes, you could just sit in one of these for 15 minutes, a couple sessions, you could get cured of cancer. They have some very positive effects this way. He was making all kinds of brilliant designs, very simple, cheap to make, and he cured cancer. He cured all kinds of stuff with this.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, because of the Nazi bullies that watch this channel and others, anything we could suggest that might help heal people to do their own research, will, they'll pick on this, and they better not. But so what we're saying basically is the resonance of it's like ultrasonic vibratory resonance, which puts the body into a certain frequency, which then nothing can hang on to. It's like, let's take the galactic viewpoint of reptilian negatives and gray negatives. Now that they have been removed, there is no way for them now to force down the frequency of the human being, meaning when we hear the word raise your frequency, that's what we're doing. Any lower of lower energetic vibratory negatives, demonics, etc., that kind of level of dark, they can no longer hook in. They can't own their humans anymore. You know, there are a lot of dark entities assigned to human beings to make their life worse than miserable. But now that everything is raising, the planet is ascending, everything is lifting and changing. And so when we talk about a tumor, for example, it is a collection of dysfunctioning cells. The cells, in the middle of the cell is the mitochondria, the nucleus of the cell. When we bring the mitochondria in the middle of a cell into perfect resonance balance, the dis-ease cannot exist.
Mm-hmm.
And I was
I have some great pictures for that coming up, actually.
Excellent.
Some quick ones. Because all of this is written deeper in the article, but suffice to say, the government, sentenced him to prison and then killed him in prison, and then destroyed every single one of his machines, and then burned every book about how to make them. So
yeah, filthy
he must have been doing
bastards.
something right.
Yeah,
He must have been onto
Tesla and
something. Yeah,
oh,
FDA and everyone, they were
I
like,
love to
no,
hear.
orgone is fake. It's all made up. Tesla created a similar machine. He actually cured Mark Twain with it. He actually would stand on this thing. It would raise vibes up through the body and heal you. It would make you feel great too. And this guy, George Lakhovsky, actually went way further than Tesla even. And he created what's called a multi-wave oscillator. So these coils send off multiple different frequencies that are all beneficial to the body. And you tune these just right and run the power through it. You can sit here like he is for, again, like 15-minute sessions or so, and it'll wipe tumors out of the body, Alzheimer's, like anything wrong with you, it can fix it because it gets those currents flowing again. Then your body heals itself. It's not the waves healing you, it's the waves that are breaking up the blockages that are stopping you from healing yourself. So that applies to anything that's wrong with your body.
It really does. And we have to defer. I love Rife, Rife, and again, another one whose beautiful work, like holding the glass tubes and setting a frequency, like letting it come through the body. But we are med beds. We are self-healing bioorganic beings. We were just told we weren't. We are designed to live so much longer than we do. And we are not designed to eat the foods, the processed foods. We are not designed to drink the fluoridated water. There's so many things wrong that have been governed.
GMOs,
people are waking up.
Metals.
Yeah.
Metals from chemtrails and from agriculture that gets into the food. The already like homunculus of vegetables we're eating from Monsanto, the big pharma stuff, the medicines that are mess up our balance even worse.
Yeah. Do you know
these guys are heroes,
They're absolute heroes, and gosh, in this lifetime that we're in, we will see a time where they are honored, where their beautiful work and their natural resources are going to benefit the masses, because we decide, in parts of Hawaii, on the islands, they've been spraying barium, titanium, and aluminium, you call it aluminum, for so many years in selected parts of the Hawaiian Islands, that you can no longer grow organic food. An organic seed will no longer grow in the soil because it has been so molecularly destroyed. The only foods they can grow in certain parts of the Hawaiian Islands are GMO, genetically modified. Which is what they're trying to. Well, anyway, let's not go into that. But again, just bless these people.
Very criminal. It's gone into Mexico, destroying these heirloom crops of corn that are the genetic property of that are the intellectual property of the Mayans, who have engineered those genes for thousands of years because they've used the best corn to keep growing from the best, and that's genetic engineering on a natural way, by helping select the most healthy. So Monsanto comes in and their seeds just blow over into that field. There goes thousands of years of someone who believes that they actually originated from corn. That man was made from, they're connected spiritually to the corn. Very sad stuff with that. But exactly like you're saying, all this stuff gets into our body, and the more heavy metals build up in here, the more blockages from the flow of this energy. And like you say, someday these men will be honored and remembered. I think that day's today,
I
because
think that day's today. It's right now.
it's right now. This is his book Lakovsky wrote, and the whole world needs to understand what's in this book, The Secret of Life, Cosmic Rays and Radiations of Living Beings. And then this book about his multi-wave oscillators by Thomas Brown, highly recommend. So I've got these things linked, but this guy really is one of the, like you say, the Rife machine as well. There's a lot more. These people, Nova Biotronics, I've got a link to them, but just quick, you can see these leukemia cells. And as they hit the right frequency for the leukemia cells, you see it break apart and dissolve and just evaporate. So this is the idea we're getting from people like Michael Salla telling us about these med beds, and people are like, that sounds crazy. I'm like,
Yeah,
this has been here for 100 years. What do you
easily.
mean crazy? This stuff
Yeah,
already happens. Lakovsky already made the med bed. Tesla already made the med bed. We've already got it.
yeah,
The Dean's device. Here we are. You've
yeah.
got a neodymium magnet, a quartz crystal. What else is it? It's basically very easy to make.
Yeah,
Not
titanium.
complicated. Titanium. Chris is so great. He's
It's
bringing this
so
to the
great.
world, and this does the same thing as what it pushes a scalar waves out from it, so these can penetrate into your muscles, into your bones, into all your body, and it can make sure these energy is flowing correctly, break up the blocks. So that's all you need to do. A little handheld device can do it.
I'm just grabbing mine. Hold on.
Oh, cool. Yeah, and these are William Brown uses these tensor rings, which do almost the same thing as the Deems device, where they create scalar waves, but nice.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
this is my Deems. And I've got a tiger's eye on it. I like to play with the different crystals that you can get. They have little magnets on the back because it's a really strong magnet. And tiger's eye is good for protection. If someone's got a company, a pub, a bar, a restaurant, an office, whatever, a lot of people will use a nice piece of tiger's eye to put a kind of a protective shield. But the Deems is these 14 magnets, 13 being in the main body, that create a beautiful looping, creating a really positive vortex. And this is the 14th magnet at the top. And I mean, I use it. I had absolute chronic earache the other day, and literally someone drove me to get some medication, because I do everything holistic. But sometimes, dude, you got to use that Western medicine. I would have done anything to get out of that pain. And I just held this, and I literally held it with the red dot out to bring, and I was like, get this pain out of my body. And I just kept it on my ear. And even though it's like a hard metal, cold metal, it was such a comfort. It was the only thing that I could use that would stop that chronic pain that I had. And so, yeah, it's really beautiful. And the thing with this, this is what we refer to as free energy, because you don't plug something like this in. It works to balance the electromagnetic field in our body. And if we look at the fact that we've mentioned chakras, we have 7 chakras inside the body. Well, the chakras have a back and a front. That's 14. 14 elements within that 7 solid structure. And there are 14 magnets in this beautiful device. And the thing that brings all the magnets together is honey. Anyway, there's so much more I could say about it, and Chris O'Connor, who brought this to us, but I think that's enough for
Well,
now.
I would like to definitely get a whole episode just on this kind of healing vibration medicine and frequency medicine, because I've got some tensor merkabas around here.
Yeah,
I've got a Taurus here. I make these tensor rings as well.
yeah, you
And the
do.
tensor rings are what I'm showing here is actually, so this is one of William Brown's designs. William Brown, who I was discussing on our last interview, and is very, very exciting. All his work he's doing is exciting. But he's not just doing this great work at Giza. He's also working on these tensor rings, and this is like a rodent coil lotus I made. I work with these a lot too, and they're based off of ancient Atlantean science. I got a dream catcher here. It's like a copper dream catcher with a ring. But these actually break up electromagnetic fields. They break up harmful radiations from Wi-Fi, 5G. They filter out the negative stuff. They're actually designed, most of the ones I have, like the one I gave you, was cut to the sacred cubit length, which actually tunes it to 144 hertz.
Right.
The sacred cubit does that because it comes from the Great Pyramid, and that's part of the whole harmonic science. So
Harmonic
William Brown
science.
uses these giant ones, and you can lay down in here, and it will really, really do something not only for your health but for your conscious evolution too. For your
Yeah. What was
ability.
the other one you gave me? I put my drinks on it, the coaster, the little coaster that you
Oh yeah,
designed, that you
one
so
of these
beautiful.
little ones I gave you.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are like woven together, so you can put these. Yeah, you could just like put them under your drink, charge it that way or above.
Yeah. You
These are,
hand make those, don't you? You make them by hand.
yeah,
So
maybe we should
talented,
do an
Trevor.
episode, and then we should talk about how to make them, because it's not that hard. I could show people how to make them themselves.
Trevor Grassi, there is so much to you, mate. We will be on BoobTube for the next 14 years straight, honestly. So
Yes, great. Sounds good. Sounds good. I just love this. I love this show. I love your audience. I love
uh,
sharing this stuff. It's really
I
so
know.
exciting to me
And then,
because this is such a great technology. You can
yeah,
one of the things you can do with even one of the smaller tensor rings is you just place it on your smart meter, your electric meter. You hang this ring over your meter itself, and it can actually purify the electricity in your entire house with one
excellent.
ring.
Excellent.
I've seen
All
people take
right.
the EMF meters to their things, and yeah, William Brown, this is his company that he does this pyramid energy and tensoring stuff. So we'll keep moving. But Russell Targ as well. I met him back in 2019, but he's got tons of books. You know, talk about Men Who Stare at Goats, that movie.
Mm-hmm.
The military side programs. Russell Tark was one of the main guys kind of designing this technique for how to remote view and how to move, get yourself into the state where you can actually do this stuff. And some of it's kind of very streamlined, straightforward, but it's very good information from what I've heard from a lot of people. And JJ Hurtak actually co-wrote this one with him, and he's an interesting friend who's working on the Giza Plateau stuff too. The Shaft of Osiris and stuff. Interesting, kind of tied into that. And then we get into more the analogy of Jesus and Christ. The oil itself, the cerebral spinal fluid, is often called Christ oil or chrism oil, or the oil of anointment or anointing. And so there's a lot of, different, the 33 years of his life in the vertebrae, the crucifixion is said to be the top of this 33 years of his life. And so the crucifixion is that chemical coming back. And the crucifixion occurred in Golgotha, which means the place of the skull. And then you can see here again, the DMT is the honey and the serotonin is the milk, or the colostrum is the milk. And so there's this kind of metaphor that goes along with that. The 12 cranial nerves in the disciples. The disciples are definitely 12 zodiac signs, but this makes enough sense to me too. This guy, Bill Donahue, he's got a channel called Hidden Meanings. And this guy's an absolute genius. I've watched so many of his videos. And he's like, he's actually a Christian like pastor basically, but he's also like a Jungian kind of psychologist, and he's into the Vedas. And what he gets into in the Bible is all these things that no one ever looks at, decrypting this stuff, like I say, that kind of went over the heads of the people who were censoring out all these books of the Bible. And so kind of like Michelangelo, I think Jesus got his message actually slipped into this text without them truly realizing it was there, like hiding God in the brain kind of. So
Can
Bill
you
goes super
can you
deep
go
on that.
back to the Last Supper, please? Da Vinci's Last Supper. Thank you.
Mhm.
So, guys, those of you that may not know, when you look at Da Vinci's depiction of the Last Supper here, you will notice, if you look at a clearer picture, there are a lot of hand symbology. But is this the one with Mary Magdalene in it?
Yeah, it's hard to see on this
It
version,
is that there's a better one that Da Vinci did. But if you guys look up the Last Supper, you'll notice really closely that one of the disciples is actually female, and it's actually Mary Magdalene, because Mary Magdalene, it is believed deeply, deeply, had the most loving, beautiful husband-wife relationship with Jesus Christ. And the men made her into a whore. Another lie from the powers that try to be. They made this beautiful, gifted woman who was a partner to the Christ. He was a man. And they were together, and it just struck me at how the patriarchal violence and dominance comes over the last, several hundred years. They tried to make her a whore because they couldn't handle how gifted she was as a metaphysical person. And she came from a very wealthy family. There's long-term historical proofs on this, but they tried to make her a filthy whore that used her sexuality to seduce. It's disgusting, and shame on all of them to your faces that did that to the Magdalene, because you failed ultimately anyway, because you are failures. But it's so important that people have at least a chance to look for themselves back in history, to read, to research, not just to click on the next bloody broadcast. Like absorb. People are like, well, I don't get it. Why isn't this changing? Why don't the aliens come down? We are the gods we've been waiting for. We are the help. We are the rescue that we've been waiting for. We have to take individual action to the things that we want. So thank you, Trevor, for letting me pop back there.
Really good point. I mean, and again, I saw what you had confirmed that I had some suspicions that Mary Magdalene was actually quite related to Nefertiti in ways, where she was to Jesus what Nefertiti was to Akhenaten in a sense. That is something we got to get into another day.
There are times, honestly, it's so difficult to say everything.
We should get into that.
The things that we know, the things that come up. It is absolutely, I truly believe, I'll speak for myself, Dani Henderson, Nefertiti's bloodline is directly connected to the Magdalene. That's all I'll say on that. And again, others, you can't just be spoon-fed or given the whole, buffet. I mean, I'm not holding anything back, only the little bit of knowing the bullying Nazis that just bully the whole time and take shit down. The other day, I try and read every comment when people make on my channel, because I'm so grateful for it. And I'm so grateful for you guys. And I try and like everyone, so a little red heart pops up, and then I'm going, and then I'm reading, it's all blank. And then I'm recognizing that as I'm liking the comments that people have taken time to write, the little heart is disappearing. It's disappearing. They're such losers.
Oh, that keeps happening to me on Facebook. I'm loving and liking these posts. I'm seeing them again, and I haven't liked them. And I'm like,
right,
what's happening?
So that they want people out there to feel like we're not loving on them, we're not seeing them, we're not caring about them. And, it's just so pathetic. But anyway, let's not waste time talking on the losers. Let's move on this brilliant presentation of yours.
Okay, awesome. Actually, I might just pause really quick here. One more second. I just paused it again. I'll be right back.
Okay, I'm going to pause too.
I'm almost done. Okay. So yeah, by the way, I guess my last line on Mary Magdalene is that we have to talk about her more, and Nefertiti. But it is interesting you brought attention to the Last Supper, because one of the other things Robert Edward Grant found was that if you look at the proportions of this room that Jesus is in, and if you look at this weird box thing that's in the front, which nobody really knows what it is, well, it turns out this room and this box are the exact proportions of the king's chamber. And the stone box within it.
Of course. Amazing how so many things mathematically or geometrically come back to that very equation. And again, guys, those that don't know, we're dropping bombs, of course, but it is believed that Jesus and Mary Magdalene not only were a together committed, devoted couple, but they had a daughter called Sarah, And when Jesus was murdered, that the Mary Magdalene and others went to France, where a lot of the legend continues story, actual true life history, or her story. And Sarah was born, and there is a whole lineage and bloodline. And there are many, many that say the Holy Grail is not the cup that Jesus drank from at this Last Supper with his disciples before Judas betrayed, as the story goes, but it is the fact that the Holy Grail is the ancient bloodline. Then how that turns into the Galactica, or the ancient pre-Sumerian with the Enki story that we hear a lot about right now, especially on this channel. It all is just so beautiful how it all comes together. It all comes together. And so that is the original human blueprint. And they talk about Adam and the Adamite, etc. But it all comes beautifully dovetailing back into together.
That's a lot of what Akhenaten was about, was restoring this divine and pure blueprint of the genetics. I think that's the same idea with Jesus coming to restore this bloodline. And you can watch the Da Vinci Code, but where that information
Read the
really came
book.
from.
The film's rubbish. I'm so disappointed in that actual movie. How dare they just bastardize the work of Dan Brown. His beautiful written word gives you so much more context than the movie they threw out there, missing all of the real soul nourishing points, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would cut straight to the source, in fact, and even cut past Dan Brown to Richard Lee, Henry Lincoln, and what's his name? The three authors who wrote Holy Blood,
Grail, Holy Blood, Holy Grail.
That's where Dan Brown got all his mythos from for all that. So that's the nonfiction version. If you want to check that out, it's a great book. Rennes le Chateau, the Merovingian bloodline there.
Merovingian.
So let's keep moving, I guess. Bill Donahue has great stuff, from biblical to Eastern to psychological, and he just talks about the pineal gland like crazy. Just like using all of Jesus' metaphors, like cast your net on the right side of the boat. He's talking about the right side of the brain. The right side of the throne of God is the right brain, the creative. And you need to be entering through this right side. This is what Jesus kept saying. And you need a balance between all of this, but really it's the right brain that has that creator aspect to it, rather than the logician and the scientist and the one who has to know everything, how it's working. The other side of the brain, the right brain, is the creative and intuitive and imaginative. And that's the side you really need to have developed to be able to become a creator or co-creator, an artist, someone who actually makes something that wasn't there before. You need that conceptual side. So great stuff he talks about. There's two people on YouTube, him and then this guy, John St. Julian. And I mentioned this guy to you the other day. He's taking care of like 250 or more children in Tanzania. He's like clothing them, feeding them, like giving them a place. This guy is evidence of what it looks like when you actually have the eye open, the things you can do. He doesn't have money or anything, but this guy ended up blowing up on YouTube as he had some of these very popular first episodes about this stuff. And I'm going to share a couple things that he shared that should be pretty mind-blowing about the Bible and what he's pulled out of the Bible. So actually, it just so happened that today he's releasing his first ever book. I just saw this yesterday. He's releasing his own first book. And this guy's videos are incredible. Like the lunar calendar I showed you at the beginning, that was from him. He's got a great video about how to align to the monthly few days when the moon is in your sun sign. So I just love all his videos are really pretty profound. And he's very much this Christ consciousness kind of like, you must be doing it, dude. Because I see the light in your eyes and I see these kids you're taking care of. And so these are some of the scriptures he cited. You love righteousness and hate wickedness. Therefore, God, your God, has anointed you with the oil of gladness above your fellows. That's a random one, but how about this one? Exodus 3:33 says, to a land flowing with milk and honey, for I will not go up in the middle of you, for you are a stiff-necked people. So this will not go up in the middle of you to the land flowing with milk and honey because your neck is stiff. Is this not spinal anatomy being described here? And how about this one? Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, for I have seen God face to face and my life is preserved. So again, Peniel, like, come on. Very interesting. Then the Lord said to Moses, make a fiery serpent and mount it on a pole. If you don't know what that means, he's probably like, what, God? What did you just say? But it does make sense as the chakras. And, there's all these, take it or leave it, associations of the, aesthetic connections as well, but also the narrative of the 33 years reaching up to the crucifixion, which is the Golgotha, the place of the skull. And people associate that, see Golgotha in the temple. And it's often related to the Ark of the Covenant, where the wings of the cherubim are the cerebrum, cerebrum, guarding around the outside of this Holy of Holies, the Ark of the Covenant. And so, Jesus said, verily, verily, I say to you, he that believeth in me, the works that I shall do, he shall do also, and greater works than these he shall do, because I go unto my Father. So he's saying you can actually do any kind of miracle that I've done yourself, and you can do more than that, because you have this same technology built in.
Yeah.
Which is very...
I think it's very difficult for me and others. I mean, I'm a reverend. I'm a literal ordained minister, not off the internet. I actually studied ministry in 2004. And we studied all religions. I mean, we really did. And the King James Bible, again, this has been altered and remarketed so many times over hundreds of years that I absolutely do not, will not, cannot trust massive parts of this manipulation, because this is how civilizations, humanity has become enslaved, because of all of the interferers, and the ones that run the planet, the deliberate manipulations. So
yeah, well, that's part of what I think is actually going to be revealed eventually, is exactly how much of it is plagiarism straight off of the Hermetic tradition and the earlier traditions, and which parts were made up. I think that'll all actually get more clear, because I wouldn't actually be surprised if we find in Egypt more of these Gnostic gospels or books that got censored out of the Bible. But I do find all this stuff very interesting. And you're right, that these translations, it's hard to tell what you can trust. But the King James is, it's less mistranslated than a lot of other ones that all were mistranslated from it later. So as the first in English, we got to do our best. But Jesus did say this, which really clears it up, I think. The light of the body is the eye. If therefore thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light. So this one, I don't think you can really, how else do you take that? They can, they can try and tweak these words around or something, but if that is really something Jesus said, he's talking about how to open the third eye.
Yeah.
Would very, very much seem so. And this is why I kind of like looking into the Bible, because I know that there's a lot that can't be believed there. There's a lot that's been turned into a control system, but there are these things in here that are like, wait, did you guys know you left that stay in there?
Yeah. There's so much beauty, absolutely. And I do say that with my whole heart. There is so much beauty in the Bible, absolutely.
Yeah. And the Quran and, the Old Testament, there's a lot of good stuff in all of them. They've all faced this corruption and people trying to turn them into control structures and dogma. But, this is one of the things when I was a little kid. My mom's a Christian and I have Bibles handy. And I looked up one day because I'd never heard anything about numerical codes or, hidden codes in the Bible or anything. When I was younger, I'd heard a lot about 2012. And I knew one day I just had the impulse to actually look up in the book of Revelations, which is the apocalypse book, the chapter number 20 and verse 12. So Revelations 20:12. Can you guess what that says? And I saw the dead, small and great, stand before God, and books were opened, and another book was opened. It's the judgment day. The judgment day is described in Revelations 20:12. And this is a day when it's talking about the books being open. This is speaking to me of the Akasha, and when people are aware of all these things they've done in past lives, and when people are revealed seeing, the book, the book of life, I would say, is karma in a sense. It's however this metaphor is applying to it. So it feels like it's describing this thing where things are revealed on this specific day, and the judgment comes from the revelation of these symbols and stuff. The fact that it's 2012 was pretty interesting to me, because I just didn't know. And I do believe that 2012 is this point that initiated this change. It didn't do it all, but it's when it starts. So anyway, another interesting thing.
Yeah.
But in Revelations, you have all these references to the 7 seals, and the 7 seals are your chakras. Mm-hmm. Plain and simple. Again, here's another good diagram. But so
let's do a check-in. We've been going for nearly 2.5 hours right now, so my body's starting to really hurt. It's too long for me to sit still. Okay, great. Just wanted to get a check-in.
Totally. I know we're getting there now, but I literally just 4 more, so we're right at the end. Perfect.
Beautiful.
That's what it says anyway. So yeah, then we have this scripture in Revelation said, and I heard the number of them which were sealed, and the number were sealed was 144,000, which of course all these Christians take to mean it's a limited number. Only this number are going to ascend. Those are the chosen ones. And this meme says something about DNA, but this is more what I'm getting to here, is that you have all these 7s, and basically within the chakra system, like I say, you have this numerology, the harmonics within it. You have 4 petals down here, and then 6, and then 10, and then 12, and 16. So if you add up these 5 lower chakras, you get 48. And then the third eye chakra has 2 petals, but that actually represents that it's twice as powerful as the combination of the lower 5. So the third eye chakra is actually 96. And then the crown chakra is said to be 1,000 times more powerful than the lower 6 combined. So if you add 96 to 48, you get 144. Times 1,000, it's 144,000 points of light within the chakra system when you open the crown chakra. So is the 144,000 actually the number of people who will reach this state, or is it just a description of those people who have been sealed with the 7 seals and are now the 144,000? That's a very different way of looking at it. A lot of Christians are going to look at that and say, wait, what?
Yeah, exactly. Well, the fact that every one of us can create that numerology within us would suggest that every single being has the ability to, go to that level of higher understanding or enlightenment or whatever you want to label it. I absolutely call bullshit on the people that said, oh, I'm one of the chosen 144,000. I'd be like, just sit down. Just stop it. All of you, stop it.
Who chose you?
It's like, oh, Janice, oh, how you doing, Janice? You and I were chosen because I got that information. I did my pendulum and it said, yes, you and me, Janice, we're chosen. But oh, Dani, oh no, Dani's not going to ascend. Neither's her dad. Do you know what I mean? It's like, this is the judgment that we've been trained into having and espousing, and it doesn't necessarily naturally come from us. There is a fear, the fear of survival. That's what religion is. If we don't follow the rules, we might risk going to hell or Hades or wherever, So thank you for raising that point. Again, if people are still with us, then the 144,000 was never about only 144,000 people being chosen. That is bullshit. And if you believe it, you need to get back and do some study,
And the only person who's going to choose it is you. You have to do the work. You have to do the work to do this. And actually it was sorry, there's 14 more slides, not 4. I did the math wrong. I saw quick, but we're almost done. But it's you have to do all this really, essentially the way that you build this light body and weave together the fibers of the spirit into an actual soul to overlap you and build within yourself this light body. That's kind of required before you can even reincarnate without losing your memories or going back into the all. To retain your memories and move from body to body, even, you need to build that up a bit. And when you build it up even more, then you can attain this light body that can actually continue on holding your memories intact as an individual, but without the need of a physical body. So that's essentially what ascension is. At a certain point, you get to a point where your spiritual bodies are so developed, you don't even need to be back in a physical one. So yeah, anyway, here's Tesla again. He says, one day man will connect his apparatus to the very wheelwork of the universe, and the very forces that motivate the planets in their orbits and cause them to rotate will rotate his own machinery.
Mm-hmm.
What a line. Because he knows we're talking about the wheels of the chakras. And this is such an important quote by John West, where he says, when death is regarded not as with us as an ultimate dissolution, but rather as a transitional and crucial stage of a journey, then the apparent Egyptian preoccupation with death becomes exactly the opposite of what it seems to be. It is, in fact, a preoccupation with life in the deepest possible sense. So this is why I believe in John. This is why he's someone I learned so much from, because he's recognizing here, like I say, it's called the Book of Coming Forth by Day. The Book of the Dead is actually translated the Book of Awakening, of waking up to this higher reality, which is in dreams, which is at death and at birth. And so this was the aim of, the pharaoh of whoever was ruling Egypt had to feel like, when Anubis weighed his heart, his heart would be less than a feather. And if he wanted to actually ascend and go be a star and improve himself to this point of perfection and immortality, he had to make sure he treated all his subjects well and never took advantage of people. So this religion actually instills within the Egyptians this motivation to be good, to be compassionate, and to care, to be sharing, from the self and service to others, which is very different. We don't have any motivation today to do things that are right. We don't. Reincarnation was one of the things they intentionally cut out of the Bible, because they don't want us to have a reason to care about what kind of world we leave behind. So
Yeah,
it's a big difference, I think.
oh,
Anyway,
I'm fading here.
yeah, here's just a couple. Here's a Nietzsche quote: once you're awake, you shall remain awake eternally. These are the last ones, and this one's too good. The field generator is your heart, your body's a spaceship, or the Merkaba is, and your pineal gland is the steering wheel, or I'd say the portal, like Elena said. It is the portal. But the key here is that unconditional love is the only thing, when you recognize your connection to everything else alive, it's the only thing that's really going to start developing you to move up and feel this confidence and all that.
I feel like that's one of the most important memes of this entire presentation right there. Right, I welcome everyone. Take a photograph, please, of that. Make it your screensaver so you can remember how important these words are right there. Thank you, Trevor.
Yeah, I think you at a certain point you recognize this truth that all life is one life, and at a certain point in your awakening process you end up getting given some kind of experience that basically confirms that for you. And once you reach this point where you know that all life is connected and it's all webbed together, then you're really getting there, to the point where you can be the whole universe. I'll skip that one, but it's not the end of the world, it's the end of the illusion.
Yeah.
So there's a final Manly Hall quote: when the human race learns to read the language of symbolism, a great veil will fall from the eyes of man.
Yeah.
So this is our awakening. Oh, one last one. My ally is the force, and powerful ally it is. Life creates it, makes it grow. Its energy surrounds us and binds us. Of course, we know this is talking about real stuff. And this is the last one: forces of light on earth shall overcome the force of darkness. Yes. Complete spiritual enlightenment on earth will occur. Edgar Cayce.
Edgar Cayce. Final quote from Edgar Cayce. Brilliant.
Yeah, so that's my final slide there. This is the link. You can see this slideshow, and we made it through.
Brilliant, brilliant. So let's put us on big screen now.
Okay. Screen sharing. This thing's in the way.
There you go. There you go. Here we are. Well done, Trevor Grassi. I know that you've put so much effort into creating this for us today. And, people might want to watch it in 2 parts. That's up to them. But I know that this is a combination of like 20 odd years of your archaeological research that you are bringing into a more condensed, and it's not easy to do. And I really want to thank you for just working. I know it's taken you weeks and, to try and create this one presentation.
Well, it's when we first kind of noticed right after the last interview, it seemed like a lot of people were really interested in the pineal gland. That's where I wanted to go, because this is, as I say, the most important information on the planet as far as I see it. It is. And honestly, I kind of feel like I've accomplished a major part of my life mission tonight just by doing this, because this is like I don't know of any information that could be more powerful. If you understand how to use this, there is no power structure in the world that can control you at this point. If you understand how to tune into the moon cycles, to the daily cycles of the galaxy, and if you recognize that this quantum technology built into your own biology is your birthright, and it is your right to have this quantum sense of all time and space, that's what you're meant to work up to. Unless you know that's the goal, how are you even going to try and get there? And as far as it comes to application to your own life, it's really nothing more than finding compassion, love, non-judgment, being able to recognize every single other being as if you are the entire universe, and see it from every perspective at once, and be all the signs of the zodiac, be all the planets, and embody the entire macrocosm into your microcosm. That's what a lot of this the white magic is. The white magic, not the black and the symbols and stuff. This is about connecting to Gaian energy, the Gaian logos from the solar logos from the source, and you're aligning with nature's will. The more you do that, the more that's naturally. You don't need to know anything about the neural anatomy. You don't need to know any of that. You just have to be accepting and loving to people, and accept that you don't understand what's going on with other people. You don't really ever have the right to judge necessarily. You have the right to react when people are doing things wrong, but I think it really has to do with trying to see the world from every perspective at once. And if you strive for that, if you strive to be open and not making your own plans through your ego, then the universe tells you just what to do, and you end up with some pretty cool stuff. I've had some good luck just trying to do what the world needs each day and not plan it myself, but listen to what it is. And, I'm here talking to you now on your amazing small but mighty channel. And I'm reaching a lot of people, and I'm feeling really great about being able to share this stuff.
Good. I'm very happy to support you and support your work. And that's what my channel is for. It is to bring on people like yourself, that are ready to step out as well, but also those already established, because the more we bring information on all the different systems and secrets and ancient history and ancient technologies all to one, pivotal point, so more people can access the truth of their own history, of their own planet, the better. Yeah. Trevor Grassi, thank you so much, my love. This was incredible. I look forward to the other side of this.
We have an exciting talk potentially coming up, but maybe we'll just leave it as a surprise.
Totally. And for people that want to get hold of your website is opusmagnum.org. Can you tell? It'll be under the broadcast too, but what is the best way to contact you?
Yeah, well, I'm on Facebook too, but you can look up opusmagnum.org. I just put this slideshow up into the head menu at the top, and some of these articles I just mentioned. There's a whole other gallery of just memes and detox stuff that you can look at that I didn't show any of. So yeah, all of this and the slideshow are up on there. I'll put a link to the interview as well. Okay. Got a link up to your website because I know that the conference is now available on video.
Yes, it is. The Galactic Spiritual Formers Connection. Yep.
You gotta buy this. You gotta buy this video and support Dani, support the conference, and share that and get it out, because everything everyone said was amazing.
Thank you, Trevor. Thank you. And to you guys out there, thank you for watching. Thanks for coming on this journey with us. I know it's going to fill in a lot of gaps, a lot of holes, and there'll be a lot of like, oh my God, wow, aha, oh my God, no. But yes. Thank you guys for
also please leave comments. I'll read all these comments in live chats, and I'll try and answer what I hear last time on the next one. So yeah. I love reading it. I love the input. So
brilliant. Thank you, Trevor Grassi. Thank you guys out there for joining us. I send you my love. My name is Dani Henderson, and I will see you soon. Bye-bye.